Pour something flammable into your glass. It's Jaded Gamercast. My name is Lang. With me as always is Nathan. Somehow we were actually able to turn this into 2 podcasts in less than a month.
And it's funny because it did just kind of happen. I just texted you as just like, dude, we should talk about this. And you were like, I need to drink. I'm in. I'm like, all right.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I am drinking a homemade cherry lime old fashioned.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
So as to try to remember more of this podcast than last one when I was just like drinking whiskey the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting with a bottle of Chardonnay from a local vineyard, but then I do have a 9-year-old Scotch as standby.
Okay. Excellent. I'd like to thank everybody who listened to the last episode and who commented and talked about it, left comments on YouTube and on the Facebook group and all that kind of stuff. It was genuinely surprising, and I think Nathan and I both said this afterwards when we were chatting that I expected like 7 or 8 people to be like, "Hey, cool, you guys came back," but there was quite a bit more than that, and it was genuinely surprising. So I'll put that out there right now, and we'll just continue to disappoint from this point forward.
I mean, really, when you go in expecting to be disappointed, occasionally we might surprise you.
Indeed. So to give you a heads up of what we are going to be doing in today's podcast, we are going to be talking about the new Aelfs photos that have dropped. We're just going to basically talk about the design and I haven't seen them yet, so this will be a pretty fresh reaction for anybody who's curious. After that, we are going to talk about Picard because the first episode of Picard came out yesterday, and we both have some things to say about it. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. We're going to answer a DM's question and talk about Dungeons and Dragons and DMing, and then we will finish this podcast up, what I will assume will be a significant portion of the podcast to give our review of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It will be spoiler heavy. I'll put it out here right now. Picard will be a spoiler heavy review. Star Wars will be a spoiler heavy review. So as soon as you hear us start talking about those things, expect spoilers. It will happen.
Mm-hmm. And we will likely be too drunk to give a spoiler warning then. So y'all been warned.
I'll try to maybe make a, I don't know. I'm not going to make like a time index. I'll try to make a time index, and then I'll put it in the description like Picard spoilers start and end here. Maybe that'll be good. Wouldn't that be professional?
That would be professional. So, yeah. I mean, listen, we do this to drink and chat. I mean, professionalism is a distant third.
It is. All right, so let's dive right into it. Let's talk about the Aelfs.
The Elves. All right, so let's just work top to bottom through here. The first one you're going to run into are the Spearmen.
Ooh.
And gone are the days of the sleek, elegant, minimalist high elves. Instead, we just have fucking bling and gems in your feather hats. It's kind of weird. They
look like a cabaret dance line from Brazil.
Oh my god, they totally
do, right? Like when you line them up, you can just imagine like ladies in like skin tight one pieces, like waving their arms around and like shaking their berries. That's all I see with those weird peacock tufts on the top of their head.
Yeah, I needed to pull back because Games Workshop was they're trying to sell them in these spoilers. So this is honest to God, the last sentence verbatim from their description. They are also more than mere soldiers. Runes, jewels, and little talismans help place these warriors as part of a fully realized Elven culture.
Elven.
And I'm just like, yeah, but what soldier? Like, fuck off. Like, they're soldiers.
Well, I mean,
I didn't realize that, like, the U.S. Armed Forces, uniform code was just like, bring your talismans and your gems to show off your culture.
We got PT at 0500. After that, We're going to do that for 2 hours, and then we're going to break for breakfast, and then after that, choreography.
Mm-hmm. But like they are not great. Like I'm gonna be real here. Like, listen, I do think that you can kind of save them. Like if I was sold on this, I think if you clip all of the cabaret hair off,
that's
just there, have like the
fix.
basic help, easy fix. I would also get rid of the titty tassel on the end of every spear. Easy clip. I don't need titty tassels on my weapon. And then you're left with, okay, they got these cool runes on the shields. I think that's a nice touch. I think the shields have always had like a few gems on the top there and like the dragon scale. So like all the rest of that is good. The sergeant, I think, is irredeemable. I think there's just too much flash and bullshit bling going on.
It's like a hero from years ago when we used to play. That would be your hero, you know, maybe not your lord, but certainly your hero. But okay. What does he have under his arm?
I think he's holding a lantern.
A lantern, and his shield is on his arm behind his back, is what it looks like.
Sure. But listen, this isn't what people came here for. So spearmen, mediocre, you can save them. Next one, you get to their cavalry, and I do need to read this again because this description is Games Workshop both recognizing how absurd they've become and then trying to spin it into a joke.
Okay.
All right. So this, I'm actually going to read the whole paragraph. It's like 3 sentences. Deal with it. Aelfs have an aeons. Wow. Sorry. Long tradition of formidable cavalry. After years of seeing Aelfs ride everything from drakes to eels, the Lumineth Realm Lords have gone full circle back to horses. Yes, honest to goodness horses. And then who gives a shit about the rest? But like the fact that they themselves are just like, holy shit, you guys. When's the last time we released cavalry on a horse?
Yeah.
And it's been like half a decade or more. Like, no joke.
I mean, it's certainly been a while.
It started with the derpogryphs when they were just like, you know what's cool? Humans not riding horses, they're going to ride little demigryphs. And you're like, okay, that's cool. But then, like, ever since then, everyone rides a monster and no one rides a fucking horse.
I mean, good on them for just saying, you know what? Elves ride horses. This is what they do. They're in tune with nature. I think these suffer from almost the opposite of the spearmen in the sense that there's really no saving these helmets. No. The like ridiculous horse mane mohawk, which is, I should point out, larger than the manes of the horses that they are riding, which seems awkward.
But even like the detailing where it swoops around reminds me of something from fucking Whoville.
It like, is very strange. Yes.
This isn't fucking Elvish aesthetics. Like this is like
Dr. Seuss aesthetics.
Yeah, it's just straight up Dr. Seuss with a horse mohawk.
I played bass for Dr. Seuss aesthetics. That's the first one of the new podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We're in the mix here. Good God. Okay, I want to move on. I want to see how ridiculous this can get.
All right. Next one is probably the only one I like. I do not know who this is.
What?
Okay, so they're like, Teclis isn't the only name you might recognize amongst the new range. The Light of Eltharion sees one of the most legendary heroes of this ancient race return with a truly stunning new miniature. Look closer, that armor is hollow. So I'm like, is this Tyrion? Potentially, because Teclis and Tyrion, twins, right? So I'm assuming that it is Tyrion. But like, just like that hollow armor look, and considering that you know that this is a lord, this one actually does work for me. I do a little too much tassel. I think I would clip every tassel off the cape. But
wow.
Otherwise, I think that there's some good stuff going on. And maybe it's because I've already seen the next one that you haven't. And by comparison, like, listen, I do think that the next one we're going to talk about, just to jump ahead, is one of the most perplexing miniatures I think I've ever seen.
I'm thrown for a loop by this model. This is a genuinely innovative design.
Yeah.
And a very interesting idea. The paint scheme is dull and boring, but it is, you know, it's supposed to be like bones and ghosts, right? Like that's what it's supposed to incite.
Mhm.
If the helmet weren't so ridiculous,
But again,
I would love it.
you could even clip those side bits off because you can see
could, but
that
then
they're
he'd just
only
have a turkey head.
That is true.
You
But
just have a
maybe it's
turkey
like an
head on top.
angry turkey head. But no, like I said, you're totally right when you talk about like this is innovative design, and when you see a mini like this is where for all of the piss we take out of Games Workshop, nobody else can make a model like this.
Wow.
Right? All of this dead space, the negative space, like at the end of the day, when you're talking about miniatures, and again, I play a fuckload of games and I own a fuckload of them. Games Workshop sweeps the podium for the best minis. They are first, second, and third because the things that they are capable of doing with plastics, with their production processes, they truly are the best, and it's not even close. And that's why I always take the piss out of their design, because they're capable of so much better than what they choose to do.
That's a very interesting model. I don't know if I would ever buy it.
Right?
That's a very, very interesting model. Okay.
All right. And
okay.
now that we've gotten this, like, this is really cool and rich.
Oh no. Oh no.
It is Teclis with a Jellicle Sphinx. I think fucking
Jellicle Sphinx.
Please
tell me that's not what it's called.
It's not what it's called.
Okay, thank God. That's good. I like that though. That was funny. That was funny.
All right.
That's
a
little bit of cat's humor there for the people who don't get that joke.
What in the 8 realms is that thing he's riding on? And riding is pretty fucking loose when the only thing touching him is a cape.
I mean,
first of all. Well, that's Kelinar, Spirit of Hish.
Like a hero sphinx or something. Andro Sphinx.
Listen, it's totally a sphinx, but like it's a sphinx as if someone in the studio saw the trailer for Cats and was like, fuck yes, that.
I think it's straight out of D&D, right?
Looked like totally. Like, listen, it is a sphinx, and if all I was looking at was this sphinx, okay, I'm going to ignore the Teclis in the room for a moment. If all you're looking at is the sphinx, I think the wings are fucking gorgeous, and that paint job kicks it up a notch. Like the way the feathers are spread and the paint on it, the wings are exceptional. The body, okay, he's got like 3 tail neck, bracelets, and he's got a couple bracelets on his arms. That's fine. The detailing at like from the neck up is where, again, Workshop always loses it because they go so over the top. I would clip all of the tassels off of that necklace, and all of a sudden I think it's workable. I'd clip the earrings.
I think on your cat is where tassels should go.
You know what? That's totally fair, but he's just going to be distracted. He's going to try walking somewhere. It's going to like bat in front of his face. He's going to flop to the ground and try to attack it with all 4 legs. You're never riding anywhere. But like, listen, the Sphinx itself, I think, is really interesting. And there are small elements that I don't care for, but they don't ruin it. And I think that on a whole, the base he's standing on, the fucking Sphinx, they fucking work. And then what the fuck happened to Teclis?
I think he got launched. Like the cat bucked him, and he's just flying through the air. Okay. Oh, wow. There's so much to process here.
Okay, so first of all, the pose, horrible.
That is awful. Don't ever pose a model like that. I don't know. Oh my God.
Okay,
and the tassels.
right.
Like this is tassel sin.
No.
Everything has a tassel on it. His boots have tassels. His belt has tassels. His horns have tassels.
Let's take a moment though, for those of you that are unaware. Following the cataclysm that destroyed the old world, Teclis like fucking mainlined a shit ton of elf soul juice. Like fucking, he got ripped on it.
Just wraithbone, powdered wraithbone. Yeah,
he fucking powdered wraithbone. He did lines of it enough to gain the power, and he legitimately became a god. And so in the Age of Sigmar fluff, the reason why Morathi's like serpent elves exist is because the god Teclis needed Morathi's help to try to subdue Slaanesh. And the reason fucking sea elves exist is the god Teclis tried to bring elves back into the world and fucked it up and threw them in the ocean to forget about them. So this is a legitimate deity.
Oh my God, I feel like his headdress weighs more than his entire elven body.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Remember,
it's like an 85-pound headdress. Wow.
He was a cripple before he mainlined all that wraithbone. But like, and this is why, for me, this model is a fucking disaster because
Cape
first
is
of all,
awful.
this would be like Sigmarines getting Sigmar himself as a release. Like this is a fucking god. So from a gameplay perspective, we can already talk about how his rules are going to be fucked because he is a god, a literal god. But then you look at this pose and he's got like that, like the fucking feet pointed down like a ballet. Like he looks like a paratrooper that stepped out the plane.
He's got the hammer pants.
You know, he's got fucking hammer pants. He's got like both the sword and the staff up in a worship me pose. Like you said, tassels fucking everywhere. Like this model is one of the most perplexing. And this is what I meant. This is why
coming out of his ass.
Yeah, where I'm like, it's one of the most perplexing miniatures ever because what the fuck are they thinking? Like I said, again, if you ignore Teclis, it's actually a cool looking Sphinx. Wow. And then you look at him and I'm just like, this is probably the worst character model from a design perspective. Because again, if you look at it, the bones are there, okay? Hammer pants, baggy sleeves, that's old Teclis.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Like, no, but like, listen, that's what he used to wear, so fine,
yes.
I'm gonna forgive it. Why does he have a fucking cape so long that it's like a bridezilla on her wedding days with her train?
Attached at his wrists.
Yes, and it's attached at his wrists. Why is he in this worship me pose? Why is his hat legitimately wider than his body?
God, it's like as big as the Androsphinx's horns.
Yeah. How are the gems in his hair?
It's too much.
Like, did they drill through the gem and then thread his hair through and maybe like, because like
I like that he's bringing dinner plates with him everywhere he goes, just on the belt for when he needs them.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, listen, when you're a good guest, you don't want to put your host out. Like you know.
Oh, I'll do my own dishes.
I am a god. You may not have china fine enough for me. So he's on it. Like, I get it. But like, holy fuck, man. Like, Games Workshop makes minis that in a lot of ways don't appeal to me. And I think on this exact same page, you scroll up to the Mechanicum stuff. I find it perplexing, but I don't find it like, just like, what the fuck were you thinking? You know, like, you know, you scroll up, you can see like their fucking cyber horses and their guns and binoculars. And then you got dudes on like dragon wings with flamers and bird talon legs. None of that just confuses me. Like, I look at this Teclis and my first thought was, this was sculpted by someone who had no oversight, because nobody checked this guy's work to go, what the fuck?
I don't even know if it was that. I think he was told to make this weird Androsphinx thing, and then later on they were just like, you get Teclis on that model? And he was like, I can't just put a saddle on this thing. Right. Like, it's standing upright. Okay. Its head is right there.
So the reason I say what I did is I'm going to send you a quick screenshot.
Oh, sure, why not?
Because the video has the piece of concept art where they're like, this is what Teclis needs to be.
Okay.
And when you look at that piece of concept art, again, big cape, that's fine. Hammer pants, again, used to be old Teclis. He's in like this cool leaping pose. Yes. It works. And so like every single bit, so like the concept artist had this shit dialed in.
Yeah, not a bad. I like the more samurai-esque helmet with a long trailing mane of hair. And like, I don't see any tassels.
And then this was given to somebody with literally no oversight. And then they, like, it was deadline day when they're like, listen, we've got to start producing Teclis. Where's the sculpt? He's like, listen, guys, here it is. Hold your applause. And you're just like,
wow.
Why didn't anyone check Steve's work?
Wow.
Why did we think he had this?
Can I see you in my office, Steve? Holy fucking shit, dude. That, wow. Talk about going from like nice concept art to just a gigantic, it is perplexing. I'm not going to say it's bad in the sense that like the Androsphinx is very cool. And I think that Teclis, there's been better techless models, and I think that's the problem that I have with this.
Yeah.
Is that even the OG techless models or techless riding a dragon, like those were good models. You know, that was OG Elves, but I guess this is the Aelefs. And wow. That is something else.
And that's what I mean when I'm like, it's just a perplexing choice, because there are design elements on Techless himself. Like, I like the dragon scale hanging from his shoulders. The shoulders are actually nicely detailed. Like, his chest piece is fine. Like, there are elements on that model that are perfectly fine. Hell, his weapons are great.
Yeah,
I love the sword. That shape of the sword is probably the best elf sword we've ever seen. But every single bit of it is overshadowed by this what the fuck pose, the fucking butt streamers, the tassels on his helmet and staff and cape. Why does his cape have so many tassels? Like,
he's the director of the line of the cabaret dancing troupe, you know, and then the horses come on stage and they high step, and you got to have tassels on the end of the spears so that it works in with, it's very flashy when you're doing your choreography. That's why, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, wouldn't it be hilarious? Maybe it's just for the kicks, you know, they're riding somebody down with their spear, just spear punches through a dude's head, and then there's like guts hanging off your tassels. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you are never getting blood out of those tassels.
Or like
you replacing them every battle.
Exactly. You get like skewered by an elven spear. You're lying there waiting to die, and you look down, and there's like a fancy diamond and like a tassel hanging out of the wound. Like, it's a very, like, maybe it's just for the lulz. Maybe that's what it's there for. Holy fucking shit! I you know what? Like, this is the thing, right? Like you said that, like, there are some good things. And I would say, you know, when was the last time you saw a model where it was 100% wrong and everything about it was just 100% wrong? So, like, I expect there to be elements of it that are good, in the sense that we know Games Workshop makes really good models. The problem is that it is one of those things where, you know, regardless of the good elements, it's still very bad. Just like the Rise of Skywalker. Okay, we're going to get to that later.
Oh,
yeah, but instead, what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about Picard. Picard came out. I'm actually really, really excited to talk about this. I'm just going to quickly timestamp this. Okay, so the first episode came out, and we had the chance to watch it on the day it came out. And my first reaction was, wow, that was excellent. I was very, very impressed by the writing and the acting and the story. And one of the things that genuinely surprised me was that I had, based on the trailers, sort of created a narrative in my mind, which I was fucking sure. I was sure that this was going to be the story. You know what I mean? Like, I looked at it and I go, yep, this is what's going to happen. I can almost guarantee this is what it's going to be. And it wasn't. It actually wasn't even close to that. And so it was surprising in the sense that, like, they genuinely pulled out a really good, entertaining story that engaged me in a way that surprised me more. Like, I was more engaged and more into that than I thought I would ever. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. And after watching Star Trek Discovery and how fucking horrific that show is, I expected it to be trash, because it's a lot of the same writers and it's a lot of the same production people. I just assumed it would be awful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into Discovery because I'm fine with it. Like, it's an okay show. Like, don't get me wrong. Oh, listen, you want to watch awful? Let's go watch fucking Enterprise again.
It is way worse than Enterprise.
Not even close. No, not even close. But anyway, I digress. What I loved about that is, yes, it has a fucking engaging story. It picks up the universe, and it even takes those fucking threads from goddamn JJ's movie, like the throwaway at the very beginning to just set up his changing timeline of, like, and the Romulan star went supernova. Yep. The fact that was both integral to character motivations as well as the makeup of that universe as it existed.
Well, and again,
Like,
they also tied it in with Star Trek Nemesis, because Nemesis focused on the Romulans, and there were like 3 or 4 moments where they like directly reference Nemesis.
mhm.
You know, and especially really big key moments where they reference Nemesis.
Absolutely. But like, so I mean, like, all of that sort of story continuity was great, because that truly is the number one failing of fucking Discovery.
Oh yeah,
Just,
like if we had 7 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation and the movies were season 8, this is like season 9, episode 1 is what it felt like to me.
it absolutely did. And one of the things that I also appreciated, because one of the things that Trek, when Trek is good and Trek is at its best, it's able to be relevant and talk through, as a setting, societal or political issues. And that fucking interview was so incredible.
Oh yeah.
To talk through, because like, it was mirroring the idea of like media consumption now and what media is, where it's all trying to spin a narrative and not really caring for the truth. And then you have this old person, like, even when Picard said, like, oh, I just write books that no one cares to read.
Yeah.
Like, because he's talking about history and he's talking about lessons learned, and like, oh, it's not my Starfleet, because like they did these short-sighted bullshit things. And like, it's so resonant for 2020. And like, that's when sci-fi is at its best. And the fact that the first episode of Trek was of Picard was unafraid to go there, incredible.
Well, and I love the way that scene was structured, because it builds off of apparently the comics that came before. This is what Maddie was telling me about. Those 2 Romulans who are living on his vineyard are ex-Tal Shiar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And like, there are a lot of little bits that come into it. And what I love about that interview is she's like, oh, what would you compare it to? He's like, Dunkirk. And he's like, you don't even fucking know what Dunkirk is, do you fucking idiot? Like, you don't even care about history. Like, this is the Captain Picard who's going to get fired up about, honor and duty and truth and all that kind of stuff. And what I loved about the way that they placed this part of the story is it's almost a mirror reflection of Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. Because in that one, Praxis explodes, and they're like, the Klingon Empire is going to be dead in 20 years if we don't do something. And Kirk goes, let them die. And the Federation goes, no, that's not who we are. Yep. We're going to help. And that built the alliance between the Federation and the Klingons. Like, that's what cemented that alliance between those 2 races. Mm-hmm. And essentially ushered in years and years of them working together and having this long-standing alliance. And to have, Picard be the guy who's sort of the inverse of Kirk in this sense, where he's like, no, this is our job. This is what we have to do. And then the Federation takes a hit and they go, we care about our own. We don't care about what happens to Romulus or the Romulans. Mm-hmm. The bit where she goes, yeah, but Romulan lives. He goes, no, lives. Like, yeah. That is good shit. And we're talking like 16 minutes into this fucking episode, like, right? And I'm fired the fuck up, man. Like, I was so amped for this.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, that like, the most interesting thing is, because you're right, like, that was the moment where it's just like, I am sold that this was the right decision. This is the right everything. And I remember when they announced Picard initially, when they're like, we're going to make a new Picard show. Mm-hmm. I was as unhappy about that as when fucking JJ says Force Awakens is going to bring back everybody. Harrison Ford's coming back and this. And I was just like, the universe is big enough to have more interesting stories.
Right.
This is an entire galaxy. Right. Why does it only ever revolve around the same people? So I didn't give a fuck. And then they had these fucking trailers come out, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, listen, Patrick Stewart's a fucking national treasure, so of course I'm going to watch it. But I didn't think it was going to be special.
Yeah.
But then, like, again, that episode, it hits all of the Star Trek beats that make good Trek.
Well, and it references episodes from the TV show. It has straight up shots from the TNG and the movies. And it references the movies, and it references the Kelvin timeline. And what I liked about how they handled that was they were like, yeah, Romulus was destroyed. But at no point were they like, hey, remember when Vulcan was destroyed? Because they're saying like, no, the Kelvin timeline is its own timeline, but it's legitimate and it's part of this universe. The Spock that went to that timeline is the Spock from the Prime timeline. And like to sort of say that, yes, these things are connected and yes, they exist in the same world or in the same story, in the same canon, like that's genius. I was saying to you, it referenced one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. And it was one of the things that when we were watching Discovery and I was talking about how shit it was, Matt and I were going back and forth and I go, I'm gonna bring up an episode of Star Trek. It's one of my favorite ones. And like, this is why it's different. This is why, Discovery sucks. And like they never hit these points. They never hit these things. It's The Measure of a Man. It's the episode where Picard
on trial.
Yeah, Data's on trial. Do you remember who the man was who wanted to take him to the Daystrom Institute and take him apart?
I do not.
It was Bruce Maddox, the person referenced in this episode.
That's super cool. No. Like I said, I love that because like I have watched Measure of a Man recently.
It's amazing
and in fact,
episode.
I've even watched the fucking YouTube channel Legal when he broke down the episode Measure of a Man, and talked through like the legal arguments being made. It is a great one, but no, I didn't remember that because like here's the thing. I'm younger than you, so TNG was never my Trek.
Yeah, no, I know.
like that was the thing is like I remember watching TNG with my dad, but like I was like fucking young and it was just something that he would watch and I was kind of there. But like Voyager and Deep Space Nine were like my first kind of Star Treks, and like that was what got me in, which is why for me DS9 is my favorite series.
Yeah, and I actually just finished watching all of Star Trek The Next Generation with Kanan. We finished the last episode of Next Gen like a day before Picard came out, and we just started watching DS9. So, and he's loving it, which I'm just having a fun-ass time with. But to sort of get back to Picard, the focus being on synthetic life and the focus being on this idea of Picard, realizing that he's just been sulking and like his departure from Starfleet as a form of protest is nobody cares, he's not accomplishing anything by doing this. In fact, he's almost making it worse by taking out of Starfleet one of its like core moral compasses. And what I love about this is it tracks with the show because Picard constantly is like, fuck you, Admiral, I'm not going to do these things. I'm not. And he was one of the strongest proponents for synthetic rights throughout the show. So to have him be the focus and have this be the focus of the show, it's just fantastic. Like it's just phenomenal. And yeah, like the Bruce Maddox thing was great because like it's such a good fucking episode, and to have him come back as whether we actually see the actor again or he's just referenced. Speaking of which, theory time. I think when he disappeared after the Accords that banned synthetic life, I think he went to the Romulans. I think he disappeared. He went to the Romulans, and he said, "I'll give you my research, and we'll combine it with all the Borg research shit that you're doing, and like with the combination of those two things, we'll be able to make like real synthetic life, and then we can use that to like rebuild Romulus and like put you guys back to fucking together," because they would do it at that point. They're in that weakened state. They need something to kick them back up. I think that's where he went. I think that's what happened, and that's why the other girl is on out with the Romulans.
On that, like, wait, are they rebuilding, motherfucker? Well, and it would also explain why the Romulans were trying to hunt down that one, because what if he reneged? What if he used them for their information to succeed and then reneged?
I think he used the resources to create the two, right? So the two androids. And what he did was he basically hid one so that they could live a normal life, because he does value synthetic life. And then the other one he gave to the Romulans, because the one with the Romulans seems to know that she has a sister. The other one didn't seem to know she had a sister, or she at least never referenced it. And can we talk about killing that character in the first episode?
Holy shit, right? When
I was blown away.
He finally figures it out, and then they've killed her. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, there was no burying the lead in the story. Like, they get right to the grit, they get right to the meat of it, and then the story just goes bang, left turn, and suddenly you're just doing something completely different. And I thought that was just excellent writing. It surprised me. I was like, is this another dream? Is this the Venn die syndrome kicking in? Is that what's going on?
Subverting expectations can pay off in very, very unique and
you do it right,
enjoyable ways. And I think that was one of the things that it managed to do, because you're right. When you were like, beforehand, everyone had theories because they just kept pulling back to data.
Yes.
And so we're just like, okay, this is like Search for Spock.
Right. And the whole, daughter, child you didn't know about story is like, that's an overused, stupid thing. A lot of people were like, oh, it's his daughter that he had with the Borg Queen when he fucked her. And you're like,
Yeah, right.
I was really hoping it wasn't going to be something like that. And I thought the thing with Data was just going to be like a funny flashback indicating that he was going senile or that the Venn die syndrome was making him crazy. And it was none of those things. And I was like, that is really an excellent choice to just be like, no, these things are different. Like, this is a different future. We're not taking the Q futures that we've been shown. Like, this is something else. This is something entirely different that we're going to be, telling a different story with. And I think for the most part, like, I'm on board. I was so excited after that episode. It was done well.
And like, that's the thing, is like I said, I remember going in, I was like, I need to watch this because this is a culturally significant show. But again, Discovery is fine. Like, it's not good Trek because, again,
it's not like Star Trek.
Like, no, and that's exactly it. It's like, it's basically Starfleet The Mandalorian. Is really what it is as a show, where it's just like, we're just going to show you how cool the universe is, and we're going to do shit that we think is cool, and we're going to meander about with no real purpose.
Yeah.
That was Star Trek Discovery. That was The Mandalorian. Picard, though, felt like Trek. And
yes, like I said, this season 9, episode 1, as far as I'm concerned, like this really, really does feel like a continuation of the story in a meaningful way, where we are following around the captain of the ship and continuing to see him. And I liked that he's old, and I liked that they let him be an old man. I liked that. I was worried that we were going to get him back, and they were going to be like, Picard's ripped and he's beating ass. It's like, no, he has a hard time getting up the stairs.
Oh, that was such a good moment, because like, he is old, and he has been sulking for so fucking long. It's just like, he's not hitting the gym. It was great. It was fantastic. I am 100%.
Although he drinks decaf Earl Grey tea now.
I did notice that, but he doesn't say hot anymore.
Right, exactly. Well, what I enjoyed about what they did with this, and where it really felt like Star Trek in the right way, was that they didn't do what Discovery did, where they decided that all of the Star Trek tools and toys were stupid, and we need to make cooler versions of all of them. I liked that they had like the tissue regenerator, but we get a close-up of exactly how it works, where we're watching the laser knit the skin back together. Like, that's good. That's good Trek. That's what you should be doing with your technology, not deciding that all of your Starfleet officers from prior to Captain Kirk are wearing gold-plated uniforms and like expensive Reeboks. Like, it's fucking stupid.
Oh yeah, no, and listen, again, it is one of the points that I loved about Picard, because Picard felt like it belonged in the Star Trek universe, whereas Discovery never has. And they're like, this is before the original series, and I'm like,
so Enterprise?
What the fuck happened, man? Right? I'm just like, because like, again, even when you look at the evolution of the Starfleet uniform, from the TNG to the reverse scheme that was heavily used in Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, it felt like an evolution, right?
Yep.
But like, when you look at the jumpsuits they had in Enterprise, I'm not even going to call them uniforms. When you look at those jumpsuits, you can like, they looked, again, how do you evolve to the Discovery shit? Like, again, like, and that's the thing, where it's just like, so Enterprise color coded, original series color coded, like everything is color coded.
Well, especially when they have the OG
Blue and
Enterprise,
gold, bitches.
Especially when they have the OG Enterprise show up and everyone's wearing the old uniforms. You're like, this is not, no, this does not happen. This is not a logical step in this. It's like looking at, an old type, Model T Ford vehicle, and then just being like, and now GT 500. Like, no, there's a lot that happens between that.
Yeah.
And that's what I need you to show me. I have no problem with you updating the look of the show to make it feel more modern. I think that JJ did a good job of that. I even think that Discovery did a good job of that when we saw the OG Enterprise, where it was an updated looking version of that ship. I liked that more than anything else Enterprise or that Discovery did. But when it came to Picard, what I genuinely loved about it was that it felt like that world had moved on. And this is the first time we've actually seen Star Trek move forward in like what, a decade and a half? You know, like this is the first time we've seen it because they've been so fucking concerned with just making nonsensical prequels that everyone is just clamoring for like, just move it forward. Like, just move the world forward. We want to know how the galaxy evolves. We don't want to see how it was. We know how it was. You know what I mean? Like, and so this is the first time we actually get to see it feel like it's moving forward. And we get to see the Federation changing. We get to see Starfleet changing. And we get to see characters that we like growing and changing in very interesting ways. And I think that's the best thing I can say about Picard is that it was very interesting what they did with the story and how true they were to the next generation and to those stories. You know, to say we're not just going to make another movie with its own story, you know, we're not just going to, you know, make up a race and have them go visit a new planet or something like that. But to say, no, remember these episodes, remember this shit, remember how important this was in TNG. Guess what? We're going to go back to that theme. We're going to continue to explore it. That's fucking great. That's what I want.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into the meat of this particular podcast, I am going to do some DM questions, taken off the DM Academy Reddit. And this one is an interesting one because as a DM, I run into it quite a bit. You don't have this problem, Nathan. So I'll be interested to hear what your feedback on this is. The title of this post is Players Not Reading Their Character Sheets. He says if a player doesn't know their abilities and they started playing D&D for about 5 sessions for 5 sessions now, and another who has been in my game for a year with the same issue, how do I handle it? Do I keep reminding them what they can do, or do I not remind the barbarian that he has resistance to slashing? I don't want a player to miss out on cool class features, but I also don't want to play someone else's character for them. I always tell them to look over their character sheets before a game, and they don't. So the game either slows down or I end up constantly reminding them. How should I approach this?
Yeah, I come from a miniature wargaming background where it's like, read your fucking rules, yo.
This is a constant problem. I will say this. There are a lot of people who get into Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games and just do not know or take the time to know any of their characters. And I feel like it is a constant, nonstop, you know, hey, remember this. Hey, remember you got to do this. From my perspective, it is your fault as a DM for not chastising your players at least a little bit when they are clearly not playing their character. Usually what I will do is I will spend the first, couple of sessions with a new group, reminding them what to do, reminding them how to play, hoping that they will eventually pick up the details and figure it out. And before they actually play the game and we do our character creation session, I will say, you need to go to this website and you need to read your entire character class, start to bottom. It's only about 2 or 3 pages. It's not that big of a deal, but I want you to know what's coming down the pipe as well. You need to know what your abilities are and how to use them. The issue here is that for a lot of players, that is not why they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I know that sounds weird to you, but that is the truth.
No. But like, I totally get it because like, fuck, man, watch any D&D stream, or at least any of the big ones. Watch Acquisitions Incorporated. Watch Critical Role. The story that they are telling and the role playing that they are doing matters way more than the mechanics that they're using, right? And so if you are someone that gets into D&D from one of these realms, Force Grey, Ac Inc., Crit Roll, like no matter how it is that you're like, fuck man, I want to try this, you're conditioned to see these people just fucking, it's like an improv session. And that's fun. And that's how they're enjoying the game. From my perspective, I think
the Adventure Zone is particularly bad for this. I think the Adventure Zone is absolutely hilarious, but the guys who play it, it's three brothers and their dad, and they are genuinely terrible at knowing the rules and reading the rules. And the DM might kind of know what they're doing, but for the most part, it's just one rule break after another to the point where they're just doing whatever the fuck they think. And even when you watch Critical Role, you see Matt Mercer and his wife Marisha, and Marisha does, she'll do that thing where she just doesn't read the entire ability. She just reads the first half of it and then casts a big spell, and then he goes, right, and then it ends. And she goes, what do you mean? And freaks out. You are going to have to deal with the backlash if you don't remind your characters that this is the way that things work. I think that for how do you get your characters to read their character sheets, I kind of talked this a little bit to somebody who I was sort of coaching on being a DM about a week ago. And one of the things that I said was, you have to just reach out to that person individually. And you have to say, hey, man, it's really slowing the game down that you're doing this. And, I am constantly reminding you, just a heads up, I'm not going to do it anymore. So if you forget to do something or if you fuck up, I'm just going to let that happen. And then you've set the stage, you put everything out on Front Street there, and you just say, listen, before the next game, I need you to read your character sheet. I need you to read your character description out of the book or off of a website. It's available for free online on a bunch of different wikis. Just go read it. And if it's still a problem after that, it's their own damn fault. And at that point, I have a hands-off approach. It's just like, fuck you. If you just forget, you forget. I don't care. It's not my job to play your character. It's not my job to constantly remind you. For new players, like I said, it's more of getting them into the groove, getting them into the game, and giving them the opportunity to learn it before you pull that rug out from under them. But he was saying one guy's been in games with him for almost a year, and it's like, bro, that dude, you got to talk to that man.
So for me, I think there's two different things going on. One, I wholeheartly agree with everything that you've said, where it's just there's only so much that you can do on trying to coach them. And then you've just got to be fuck it. I've given you 5 yellow cards. Here's your red card. I'm not doing it anymore. But I think the other thing is are they
everybody drink.
Hey, listen, we have a band name and an is. Here we go. We're back, bitches. Why are you playing? Because remember, we kind of set this segment off when we were talking about that, where it's just if all you're doing is playing an improv session, odds are the mechanics element of the game doesn't really matter to your players. And so is you being a stickler breaking the flow and breaking the fun for them? And it's hard to say, if you're just going to say this, oh, he just never remembers. But does he care? And it's to me, I think that's one of the biggest questions is if he doesn't care and he's having fun the way he wants to have fun, fucking let it roll. You don't have to play his character for him. You don't have to constantly remember. And maybe one time he's going to get fucking shit kicked and he's going to be like, hey, I don't remember my barbarian being this soft before. And then you're like, well, listen, man, hey, you do have resistance. You got to make sure you remember the rules because I'm juggling so many things. I can't play your character for you. And that's the thing where it's just does he care or is he just crutching you? Yeah. And I think that's the hard thing to tell, because if he genuinely doesn't care, just let him have fun.
I think that's definitely the case. And I would say that that's true. If the person is just having a great time and laughing their ass off, and then, his teammates are looking at him like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? The problem that I run into with this, and the problem that happens often if you don't talk to that person directly when you take their crutches away, is that when they trip and fall, they're going to blame you for it. They're going to say oh, okay, yeah, so I go in with my barbarian and I make my 2 attacks. Okay, great. And then you attack him and he takes a whole bunch of damage and he goes reduced by half. And you go, no, you did not use your bonus action to go into a rage. And they go, oh, come on, man. That's assumed come on now, like this character would go into a rage, like that, and you end up getting into this situation where you end up having to like roll back things that happen unless you have that conversation with the player to say, listen, I am going to do this for you like one more game, or this is it. You need to start doing this on your own. I'm not going to remind you anymore. And if you forget, you forget. And that's it. You have to deal with the consequences of it. I think you just need to set the standard for your next game so that person is able to come into it understanding what's going on. And if they don't like it, fine. I think they're just that type of player, and I don't think there's a whole lot of way of changing it. And if that's the case, man, you got to decide whether or not you want to play with that person anymore, or whether you want that person to be in your game. I just think that if you don't talk to the person first, and if you don't say, this is a problem, you're slowing the game down, you're messing with the flow of the game because you haven't taken the time to read and learn these things, and then say, I'll help you one more game just to help you get onto your feet. But like after that, we're done. Like after that, if you forget something, or if you don't do something, if you just forget to reckless, or you roll your first attack and it misses and you go, oh yeah, reckless, that is the sort of thing that I'm just going to say, no, you didn't say reckless. You've already rolled your dice. It's over. And I feel like that is the most important thing to take away from this is to talk to your players individually if there's a problem.
So going back to something that I said last episode that I fully stand by. When you are playing D&D and you're, it's not just a drop-in session and you're like, hey, this is our group, this is our thing. You are dating these people.
Yeah.
You legitimately are. No, but like you legitimately fucking are. And so what you need to do, going to every last thing that you just said, communicate. So if they're going to be doing this and it is driving you crazy, you need to fucking talk to them. Exactly how Lang said, just to be like, hey, these things are happening. I need you to read your shit. I'm going to do it one more game, but like after that, I can't go back all the time just for you because no one else has this problem. And then again, going back to what you said, where it's just like, maybe we don't fucking play with this person anymore. If they're going to be bitchy about it, dump them. Because like basically you are in an open relationship with all of your fucking players and you need to make sure it works. So you need to make sure like it's not just scheduling. You need to make sure that you can communicate, that you guys can talk, because you're basically saying once every however long you play, we're all going to get together. We're going to spend like 3, 4, 5. I mean, like shit, I had to turn down a game because someone local was like, I really want a DM. We'll do once a month, 12-hour games. And I was like, listen, friend. There is no humanly way that I have the attention or the stamina or like anything to do a 12-hour session. Like I have hardcore ADD, and ever since I've had my gallbladder removed, I have the strictest dietary considerations that if I slip up on, I am now physically ill. So like if you want me to be throwing up everywhere, let's do this. Like, no, I can't do it. And he's like, well, what if we did like, at your house? And I'm like, you are not inviting strangers to my house, friendo.
For 12 hours.
For 12-hour sessions once a month. Fuck no.
No.
And so it's just like, you've got all of these things where it's just like, you are dating these people. And if you cannot communicate with them and you cannot tell them that you find it frustrating because you think they're going to explode and they're going to sulk, dump them and replace them. Like it sounds shitty, but as a DM, you are having your fun, your enjoyment is coming from facilitating the fun of other people. And if you are afraid to talk to those other people, at what point does that stop being fun for you?
Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing, is if your DM's not having fun, the whole game is going to suffer. And this is why, going back to last episode where he was talking about stories that are going to engage his players, and he couldn't find something that would engage his players long term. It came down to like, it sounds like you're not having fun. It sounds like you're not telling stories that you want to tell, and you're not, putting your players in check to say, this is the type of people I need you to play for this story because this is how this story is going to work. For instance, we talked about it a little bit last episode, but we can actually talk about it more in depth now because we've actually run it. We ran the first session, the session 0 for the new campaign.
Yeah, we did. It was great.
It was a really good time. Basically, what I did was, this is based off of a book that Nathan recommended to me called Kings of the Wild, which is excellent. If you haven't read it, it is a surprisingly entertaining book. But it is about a story that is a group of aged adventurers, all in their like 70s and 80s. You know, I think the youngest person is like 65 by the time this is all done, or 68. Yeah, 68. And basically what ends up happening is the oldest person would be 68. Anyways, what ends up happening is that the story is that you were all members of the most famous, the most legendary, the most renowned adventuring band in Faerun. You did everything right. You saved the world multiple times. Your names are known everywhere. And then you have a few bad years that eventually forces your group into retirement. You split up and you all retire and you go about your ways. And then 30 years pass and the frontman for this adventuring band shows up and says, I need your help. We got to put the band back together one last time because we have to go do this thing. And it's a story about a bunch of old, adventurers having to get back into the game and do it again. You know, the adventuring game is different now. The world has changed. You've changed. These, amazing heroic characters that you guys built up are now broken and have PTSD or like a bum leg or have lost many fingers. And the way that I structured this, actually, why don't you explain how I structured it? Because I think that it would be interesting to hear it from your perspective, Nathan.
Yeah, no. So it was exceptional. Truthfully, because it was D&D in a way that no one's really done before. And I mean that like when you watch a stream, when you watch whatever, because basically what ended up happening is beforehand, you basically said, give me your level, like make a level 1 character. Let me know what they are. This is the hook. Why would they want to go make an adventuring band, etc. And so we did. And instead of sort of a traditional session where we're going to have to talk to we all meet at the bar because we have mysterious letters. And then, oh, what's this? We meet and now we have to go elsewhere. The way you structured it is you were just like, okay, you all introduce yourselves to each other. You decide, fuck it, we'll give this a shot. And you're like, okay, so in your first year, this is the challenge that you overcome. This is what you as a mercenary band choose to do in order to try to get some fame. So I think like in our first year, it's just like, you were chasing bandits and eventually we found like the fucking goblin shaman.
Yeah, the Blackbone Goblin clan. That was the primary battle of your first year.
And then you're like, so what the fuck happened? And the way you structured it was literally like a game of Whose Line Is It Anyway, where it's just like, literally everything we say, any of us says, becomes canon. And so it's just like, oh,
I did not say no in the span of, what was it, 4 hours?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's just like everything that we did. But like, it's not like we pushed you. I think maybe with some of the magic items, some people
Terry's
did.
magic item pushed me.
Holy shit.
I will address that.
Holy shit.
I have a way of addressing that, and I'm going to talk to Terry about it. But
holy shit. Anyway, but like, so it's just like, we're just doing that. And then like, Aislinn was just like, I'm going to use character names, deal with it. If I remember them all, anyway, Aislinn was just like, and I killed the shaman. And I was just like, but it wasn't really a shaman. He said that he was like a night shaman, but he was just painting goblins white to make them look like ghosts.
Yes.
And then like, everyone's just like, well, I did this. And I was like, and then fucking Lily exploded a person.
Yeah, that's right. The bandit, she exploded.
Yeah, she exploded a bandit. And part of that was because that character was like this fucking halfling who was like super bubbly, wouldn't stop talking, and no one really understood why she belonged in the band or why she would be useful. So I wanted to throw that hook where we're all just like, holy shit,
Yes.
that bandit exploded. And I
when-
just wanted to like cement that and provide the glue. And so like that became the thing. And then, you're like, hey, at the end of year 1, this is what you did. Tell me about it. You're like, everyone level. And so it's just like we get a level, we maybe get feats. Sometimes you give us fame or you'd give us fortune, and
to explain that, I had a number of I had multiple sheets that I had designed, tables and level structure and stuff like that, where throughout each year of their time as the greatest adventuring band ever, when they would level up after a certain year, they would gain fame, fortune, or a feat. And sometimes you would gain it and it would be given to you. Other times you would roll. Other times you would get to pick. And so by the end of the 8 years that they were an adventuring band, somebody was the most famous, somebody was the richest, and somebody had the most amount of these big, crazy feats. And the feats were reflected by actually giving your character a feat from the feats chapter.
Yeah, and like I said, it was really interesting because, like you said, it was maybe like 3-4 hours. We were there, and we just go through and be like, "This year, this is what you guys accomplished. Tell me about it." And so, not only were we building this lore, building this mythology, we're getting fame, we're getting fortune, we're gaining these feats. Our characters were getting better and more exactly what we all had hoped for, right?
Well, yeah, I gave you everything you could ever want. It was after we would finish certain years, it would be like, and you gain a magic item. What is it? We can just pick whatever we want. Yeah, pick whatever you want. I don't care.
Oh, totally. And so it's just like basically over the course of the session, we were able to walk out of it with all of our characters. I won't say walk out of it, but we were able to have a point of that session where our characters
talk about the last year or the last 2 years.
I will, where our characters were perfectly what we wanted and what we had envisioned. And we'd leveled up enough that, like, holy shit, if we were going to start playing now, these characters are everything I pictured in my mind. But in addition to that, we learned about each other's backstory.
Yes.
Fucking serious life events occurred. And we all gained magic items that, again, dealt with these things, with us growing our fame. So then in our 8th year, we're the biggest band, we're the most famous band, we're delving the Underdark. Not to spoil anything, but like the 8th year was fucking hard for us, and we got fucked up that year. Mm-hmm. And so you had every one of us roll a D4 to determine how we got fucked up. Mm-hmm. So
that was in year 7, yeah.
Oh, was it 7?
Year 7 was the D4, and then year 8 was the D6.
Right. And so it's just like, one of the characters lost, like, had to roll a D6 to see how many fingers they lost, mm-hmm. which affects their manual dexterity. So any skills that require manual dexterity, I just knocked the mic, whatever. Hand talking.
There we go. And actually, I think I'm also going to make it effector spell casting. Because like somatic spells that require like hand movements.
And I think you should, because when you're like, every one-handed weapon has disadvantage, I'm like, it's a spellcaster. They don't genuinely care about that. And then for mine, I have a 10,000 gold piece bounty on my head because I killed a noble.
Well, what was fun about that was basically when you rolled on the table, you made this roll, and all I said was you did something bad, and now there's a 10,000 gold piece bounty on your head, and you're being hunted by a particularly nasty bounty hunter. But what I said to Nathan was, what did you do?
And you said that for all of us.
Yes.
For every one of
I did not tell anybody how
injuries.
any of these things happened. I said,
what
happened?
Just like,
how did it happen?
This is now the thing. How did it happen?
Dude, you're going to lose your shit when you see Aslan in the first game.
He's so fucked up. I think he got it the worst.
He got it pretty fucking hard.
Holy shit. Because, like, he lost his best magic item.
Yeah, he lost his top tier magic item.
Whereas I lost my lowest tier.
That's right.
It actually hurt me more. I was ready to give up my tattoos. I loved that hat. Fucking loved the hat. But it's just like he lost his top tier magic item. Both of his injuries were probably the worst in class.
Yes.
Of the four of us, of all of the outcomes, he rolled the worst both times.
Yeah. Ruined vision and lost memory. Head trauma.
So it's just like he is in a bad fucking place and he lost his one. And then when you're like, everybody is gonna lose half their hit dice because we're old and out of shape. So sorry, let me get to that after.
Okay.
But anyway, so then in the last year, you're like, we all go out again after our injuries, we've healed, but our hearts aren't really in it, and nothing goes right that year. Everything goes fucking wrong. We get hurt. We don't find a worthy cause for our level of fame and like all of these things. And eventually it ends with all of us just deciding like, you know, that's it. The best is behind us. Mm-hmm. We are the best mercenary band. We are the most famous. You know, we're the goats of this fucking universe. There is no reason for us to continue when we got fucked up the last time. We got fucked up this time, so we all called it quits. And that's when you had us roll again, where it's just like, you know, first of all, what's the injury y'all took this year? Or not even injury, because in Baron von Kruger's case,
Axel von Kruger, yes. He's actually not a baron because he lost his baronship.
Right. Yeah. He did lose his barony. So Axel von Kruger, dude, when you're like, goes to the quarry, I was like, no, that shit is awful.
Yes. So he was the only one not affected by the old and busted feature that I gave to all of you, but he had a different feature entirely.
Yes, which I don't know which I would have preferred. But as part of the old, so like we all get this additional injury, and then you're like, everyone roll a D3 because y'all losing a magic item. Because you've given us like a normal, you gave us a rare, and then you gave us like a fucking wondrous throughout
legendary magic item, yeah.
You know, throughout our fucking time becoming this famous, doing this dungeon delving. And that's why, like, again, as you're saying, on the D3, Aelin lost his best. I lost the first one that I got, which was the most characterful, and that's why I think it bugs me more.
Yeah.
like don't get me wrong, the other two make my character play the way I want it to play, but my first one made me happy.
Do you want to describe the old and busted feature?
Sure. Let me actually pull up I actually did pull up when we started this. So, old and out of shape.
That's what it is, yeah.
First of all, I had to reduce my number of hit dice by half. And then I had to roll the half of the hit dice that I lost and lose that many hit points from my total maximum. And this is where I say that, like, Aelin also got it worse because he lost his top tier magic item.
He rolled so
and then on
high.
4d8, he rolled like 26.
He rolled so fucking high.
He rolled so fucking high that he lost almost half of his hit points. Compared to me, where, first of all, I'm making a sumo wrestler.
Yes.
I'm a sumo wrestler monk.
Yes.
And so my con has been 20 for some time, and I have the tough feat. So I am just like this big slab of hit points. I roll my 4d8, and I Nathan the shit out of this roll. This is the Nathaniest roll ever. On 4d8, I lost 9 hit points off of my fucking hit point total, which was, like I said, like a third of what Aelin lost and half of what Lily the Warlock lost.
Yes.
And so I had the most hit points to start by a long shot. I would think I was tripling Lily and doubling Aelin.
Yours was really, really high. Yeah.
And then I lost like 9.
Yep.
And so that was one half of the old and out of shape. And then the other one, which is, this is the one I genuinely do not know how we're going to deal with. So if we are in a combat that goes more than 4 rounds, after the 4th round of combat, we gain an exhaustion point. And you did clarify that every 4 we don't gain another one. So if we hit that round 5 and we all gain the exhaustion point, Then if it goes 100 rounds of combat, it's still only 1 exhaustion point, which is good because otherwise we'd be dead.
Yes, correct.
But like,
but if you got into another fight while you had a point of exhaustion, 4 turns into that next fight, you would gain another point of exhaustion. Yeah,
exactly. And so that is the one where it's just like, because like, you know, for those of you that like, I will admit that as a player, I've read half the rules. No, but like, listen, like you are a good DM and you prompt us on what we need. So for me, the most important thing is always knowing my character, knowing what I want to do, so I'm not slowing down the entire flow of the game. So when you go, hey, round of combat, fucking Yujiro, what are you doing? All right, I'm gonna use this fucking key feat so that I can use my bonus action to like get the extra damage and throw them and do all this fun shit. Great, next one. So like I make sure that I'm always there because I understand that if I'm like, we
did homebrew your sumo monk class.
We did homebrew, which again, this was part of you did not say no to anything. Even when I asked for a magic item that kind of mixed barbarian class features with monk, you were just like, let's do it.
Well, I even one-upped you. I think all you wanted was AC, and I was like, that's boring. Let's really make this thing fucking jazz.
Yeah, because like legitimately, I'm like, well, because like because I was building sumo, I built the world's shittiest monk, right? Because monks go
con-based monk, yes.
Yeah, because monks go dex and then wisdom, which means monks tend to have very high ACs. I was like level 8 with like an AC of like 15.
Yeah, it was
abysmally bad. And so you did one up. So like that's why I was like, I guess I really just want something that's going to get my AC to where it would be if I wasn't kneecapping myself. But then you did one up me and you're like, well, why don't we just give you this barbarian class feature? Because then it actually feels like, yes, you're getting hit a lot, but you're not getting killed.
Yeah, because the idea is, a monk has high AC because he's dodging everything. He's getting out of the way. So for your sumo monk, he should not be necessarily hard to hit. He's a gigantic target. It should just be more about the fact that like this dude's got some meat on him. He can take some hits. So that's why, when it came to, how the magic item would function, and you just said like, all I really want is AC. I was like, but I don't think that's what this character needs is AC. I think what this character needs is something to just keep making him tougher and stronger. By the end of the session, it was absolutely fucking hilarious. And what I loved about it was that it went how I envisioned. And that as a DM is sort of the best thing that you can have happen, is that you envision how this would go. And then it actually goes that way, where the 4 of you had created characters that now had a shared background. A lot of times when you start a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like you said, everybody gets a letter and they show up in a bar. But it's always like, write your backstory, give it to me, and then it's my job to try to like force you fuckers to talk about your backstory so that something happens. And instead what we did with this was we just made every character's backstory the same, and every character has the same stuff. I mean, at this point, there's almost no secrets between you guys. You all know exactly what happened to each other, and you know every piece of your characters and your party members' backstories, to the point where when we start campaign 1, it's going to feel like these people and that you can talk to them and that you can get right into the characters, and nobody has to do that whole 5 game sessions of my character doesn't talk very much because he's dark. He's dark and he's, he doesn't like to talk about his father. And instead it was like, no, for the first 3 years, you guys didn't know that much about each other. But when we got to a certain year, I said, you all find out something about your backstory. What is it? You all find out about it. This year you have, this year gets focused on your character. What happens? How does this play in? And so by the time it was done, and we start this campaign, you guys know everything there is to know about each other.
Yeah, and like I said, I appreciated it because, again, so many times as a player, I take the time because, you as a DM, you're like, give me some backstory, tell me about the character so that you have something to work with.
Yes.
But you look at even when we were playing what's the one before Rise? Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Yes.
When we were playing Horde, we basically spent 3 sessions accomplishing nothing but suspecting Maddie of
Correct.
being a fucking cultist spy.
Yes, that's
because
right.
he was just shifty as shit.
That's right.
And so, you know, you've basically kind of like gotten rid of that, which allows us to actually play and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the thing, because like, you know, yes, that happened in particular because that character was being, like you said, shifty as shit. But like, even when my necromancer died at the end of Horde, and then I made a druid because goddamn, do I have a problem?
Yes, you do.
I'm so glad you didn't let me play druid.
No, I was actually, I had written it down that I would not allow you to play a druid. When you said monk and you said sumo monk, I was like, that sounds great. I think you would enjoy that. Like that, or we were talking about like rogue inquisitor. And,
okay, for those that don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with druids.
Yes.
As in, I love the idea of druids, and I hate every moment I have to play them.
Yes.
And so, this started with my literal first D&D anything.
Yes.
Because I remember when 5th edition came out, I said, hey, D&D looks pretty good. And that's when you were just like, fuck, man, I used to play so much D&D in high school. Let me do this.
Yes.
And so we jumped in, and basically I wanted to play a ranger. I wanted a forest ninja.
Yes.
And I picked druid because I didn't know fucking anything.
Well, you saw that you could turn into an animal, and that was all you needed to know.
I basically stopped reading
Jadoon,
it at that
yes,
point.
that was his name, Jadoon.
Yes.
And we've told this story about you, because I use you as an example for Dungeons and Dragons players very often, because like that interaction that you had with Jadoon, where after 3 sessions you hated him, but you were unwilling to change his character because that was the character you created. Like you were like, listen, this character sucks and I hate him. I was like, well, just change these things. You're like, but that wouldn't be Jadoon. And I was like, all right, fuck, whatever, man. You know, it's funny. I'll point this out to you. Jordan, because I met him for lunch this week, and we were talking about characters, and we were talking about how his characters changed and sort of what we were going to do with his character, because his character had the most, like he rolled the shittiest, and his character had the most dramatic character shift. I think that Axel is still relatively the same. Your character is fucked up with his PTSD, but is still relatively the same. And Lily is still relatively the same, but his character is like a polar opposite of what he was. And I think that is going to, like I said, you're going to be very surprised when you actually play the first session for him. But, you know, what I love about this idea and this campaign is that what he said to me when we were talking about it, he's like, I've never had a Dungeons and Dragons session like that with players like that. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, every single person wanted to role play, even though we said there wouldn't be any role playing in this session 0. We spent a large quantity of time actually role playing. And he goes, and they were having fun, and we were all joking, and we were all fucking around, but every single person at that table took it 100% serious. Like there was no goofy nonsense like, how did you lose your vision? Oh, I got hit in the eye with a potato. You know, everybody took it serious, and everybody bought into the glorious great highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And, you know, what I love about it is the character that you envisioned is the character you were in the past, and how you are going to play this character as an old man who is, you know, now is essentially a criminal and has been hiding in his monastery for 30 years, is going to now deal with A, his PTSD, and B, his the fact that this bounty hunter is after him. Like it's going to be really, really interesting.
Well, yeah, because like again, as I said, like part of my backstory was like, why am I going adventuring? Well, it is literally a coming of age rite in my monastery, right? Like the way that monastery funds itself is everyone hits a certain age and like fucking Mormons going on a mission.
Right. Yes.
That's literally how I described it to you.
Yeah.
They have to leave the monastery. They have to go travel. They have to adventure, and all of their money goes back to the monastery. And if you die, you were not good enough.
That's right. So actually, every point of fortune that Nathan's character Gajiro,
Yeah,
Yujiro acquired was actually erased. So he ended with the campaign with 0 fortune.
Yes.
And part of the fame and the fortune aspect of it was that when I said to, okay, 30 years pass and you guys retire, like, what do you do in your retirement? What they were allowed to say that they did in their retirement was based on their fame and their fortune. And Terry's character, Lil, ended with the most fortune. And so she had the opportunity to just be like, I start a bar, I do these things. I've got this like museum of artifacts from our adventures, like it's the, like theme bar. We called it it was the Exploded Bandit, right? Yeah, that was,
yes.
It ended up being the Exploded Bandit from year 1 of your adventure.
Which is so amazing because, like, even when I talked to her afterwards, I was like, listen, I am sorry that I just said something for you, but at the moment, she was neck deep in books because I don't think she fully, like, she was trying to look at spells and she was trying to figure out abilities because, like, she didn't understand that wasn't necessary at that point.
Yes.
And so we're all talking about all of these things that we did. And I saw that she was, like I said, just fucking nose deep in, books. And that's why I threw something out for her that both did away because, like, we left that introduction in the tavern when we all decided, like, fuck it, we'll try. There's no one else trying to make a band right here. Everyone was kind of like, what the fuck's the halfling doing? Like, this motherfucker's like 6'5" and like 380 pounds. And like, he was like, oh, I'm faster than I look. And like, like you said, you're like, I'm not going to say no. You're not going to have to roll. If you say it happened, it fucking happened.
That's right.
So I did this like fucking feat of like speed and dexterity and like, shit where they're like, whoa, wow, that's impressive.
Well, yeah, you flipped the table and caught it. But basically what I said was that, but you didn't stop any of the drinks from going anywhere.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. Because I was like, I was seated behind a table. I basically just like threw the table up in the air and then shot out of my seat, ran around to the other side, caught it, and set it back down. But you're absolutely right. Every fucking drink on that table was gone. And so it's like, I did that. And there's like Aislinn, like a fucking literal angel.
Yes.
Coming in here, and then there's like fucking Axel talking about like how good he is as a swordsman, and Guy, the fucking fighter, rapier, pirate motherfucker.
He's not a pirate. He's a
I know he's not a pirate, but you said he uses a rapier, so fuck it.
Uh-huh.
And then there's this chatty halfling that we're all just like, what the fuck? And so I wanted to give that hook.
Yes.
And the fact that, like, even later where they're just like, you all accomplished this feat, what did you do? And she's like, I exploded something, but this time it was intentional. And you can see my eyes were open because the first time they were like just like clamped shut and I was just kind of pointing at random. And then again, she named her in after that. So like, it was really cool to see those hooks come back. And we all fed off of these things. Because even, again, when you're like, well, how did you get the feat for this? Well, Aislinn talked about his feat where he was he killed everybody in this room.
He held the pass. Held the pass against, it was like 30 Kuatoa or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, well, how did you do it? And I'm like, I was on one end making sure that nothing could get behind him.
Yes.
And while that was happening, because I think I took tough I'd already had tough. I took like durable or resilient or something. Mm-hmm. I was like, I just kept like, the Kuatoa, they use poison blades. So like, yeah, I managed to block it, but I just kept getting like stabbed with these poison blades and like it was touch and go for a bit. But like I weaved myself into his story. And like, this is how we both got our fucking feats and our nicknames and all of these things.
Yeah, everybody had to pick a nickname. You had to come up with a name for your band. And I absolutely loved it. I was actually super intimidated when it was over because everything had gone so well that I was like, fuck, what do I do? And it took me like 2 or 3 days of mulling it over in my head to actually start putting together how I'm going to make the first session of the game play out. Like I've talked with Maddie about Axel von Kruger and his and like where he is now and what his character is going to be like, how it's changed, and like where that story is going to go. As well, I talked to Jordan, and we were going through Aslan and sort of what this Azamar paladin is like. What is he now? How has he changed? And like what is going to be different about his character? And so like I'm going to sit down and talk to you. I'm going to sit down and talk to Terry, and we have to flesh out a lot of the details about where's her bar located? Where are these certain things? Like where's your monastery located? What are the high points, the small bits and pieces that are sort of going to like, make up the minutia of your character and the story and how it's going to go forward. Because, I gave you the hook for the campaign at the end of the session.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of what happens after that is still going to be very much up to you guys. Like it's not just going to be dive right back into the Underdark, but it is going to be, there's going to be some other stuff that happens. And I'm actually going to have another write-up for you at the beginning of the first session, which is going to be like, and here's how the world is different. You can probably assume what it's going to look like because we've both read the book and this is based heavily on that book. But like there's a lot of bits and pieces that for like Matt and Terry and Jordan that is going to be like, yeah, the world's changed. It's not what you remember, and this is why and this is how. I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I am a genius, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has never been done before in all of D&D, I'm sure.
With your big brain.
That's right.
No, and like, listen, that was one of the things where it's just like, based on where you ended it, and you're like, this is the thing for you, this is the thing for you, this is the thing for you, and this is the thing for you. Even Terry and I have had those conversations where I'm just like, I am very much looking forward to it because at the end of the day, we're not ready. Like, where we ended, we are not ready to go back down and deal with this cataclysmic event that we have to deal with because, Axel's got nothing. So we're going to have to go.
He lost all of his magic items, money, and everything as part of the thing that he rolled up.
So we know that we're going to have to at least go and rearm, re-equip him and fucking, set his house in order. Like that's something that has to happen before we can go into the Underdark.
Very likely going to be the first story hook. Yeah. The first story arc.
And at the same time, I know that Terry has considered that ring of bullshit to assist Aislinn because he's fucked. He's so fucked. He's so fucked up that Terry's just like, I think I might need to use one of the wishes. And I was like, I can't say you're wrong because, oh my God. Whereas, like, I feel like I feel like I managed to skate through with my character where at the end of it, yes, I do have the old and out of shape thing and I'm going to get exhausted and my PTSD exists and fuck me. How are we going to disguise me going into a city? All right. We're looking for a 6'5", 500-pound man, but that one has a mustache. It can't be him.
Yeah, known as the Mountain. Yes, correct.
Known as the Mountain.
I think that I have something for Terry, and I'll give it to her. I'm not going to give it to you.
No, of course not.
But I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's something that she's going to get a chance to play with in the first couple of sessions. So we'll kind of see how it works. But yeah, I'm very excited for it. I think it was a lot of fun. I did record the episode, so I may put it out. I'm not 100% sure yet. I want to actually get the rest of the world established in my own head prior to actually putting it out and letting people listen to it. But I've had a few requests already for people who are like, I would like to listen to that episode. Like, I would like to listen to you guys doing your session 0 and actually like going through it step by step like you guys did. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Okay. I already fucked up the timestamps because I never did like the where we ended talking about Picard. So yeah, you know what, everybody, I hope you are enjoying the podcast, and I really hope you actually found your way to this portion as we are going to talk about the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, the statute of limitations for spoilers on this is passed, so fuck you at this point.
Yeah, listen, it's been a month.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see it, you've already seen
That's correct. The statute of limitations for spoilers has passed, but that isn't the case on Picard, although we only talked about Picard for about 20 minutes or so. So, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Okay, The Rise of Skywalker. I am a Star Wars fan more than you are. You're more of a Trekker.
Okay, first of all, that did not used to be the case. Like, honestly, Rise of Skywalker is what made me a Trekker, and I'm not even gonna.
I would have to agree with that, to be honest, because I feel like I'm more of a Trekker now too.
Yeah, like, but between the Mandalorian and fucking Rise of Skywalker, because like I even had this. So before you get into Rise of Skywalker, I had this conversation with Terry where I'm like, I can't really call. Like literally yesterday, I was like, I can't really call myself a fucking Star Wars fan despite my 2 tattoos, because like pre-new movies you had to just be like, yeah, listen, I told like Star Wars is so incredible, just pretend those prequels don't exist, like just pretend 3 of the 6 movies don't exist, and this is the best science fiction ever. And then it's like, yeah, Force Awakens is fine,
yeah, Solo
is fine,
it's fine,
like I like Solo more than I like Rise of Skywalker, but they're basically the same movie. Like this is a modern blockbuster that is fine enough. Like, as I told Terry, Disney turned fucking Star Wars into Die Hard, where it's just like, look, it's this fucking serial summer blockbuster. Every movie is going to be as safe as we can make it. Don't think about it, because the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. You know, there are going to be moments where you laugh. There are going to be fucking catchphrases, and go with it. And like, that's why I was like, I can't really say that I'm like this huge Star Wars fan anymore, because of most
of the movies I don't like.
Yeah, most of the movies I genuinely don't like.
Now, I'm not in that boat, because I do like most of the prequels. And we've had this conversation before. I think they're fine movies. They're not.
We have. And I vehemently disagree, and that's fine.
That's right.
We've had this conversation to death. But for me, I'm like, I like episodes 4, 5, 7 is fine. I like 8. So, and Rogue One is exceptional. So I'm like, I like 5 of 11.
I'm not counting the Ewok movies or the holiday specials. So
no, of course not.
I'll point it out here. For Nathan and I both, this movie is a thumbs down. We both agree that it is a bad movie, and I think that Nathan said it very well when we talked about it the first time, is that this is a mildly entertaining mess. And that is the best way to describe it, in the sense that there are parts of this movie that are genuinely very good and are done very well by a person who does love Star Wars. And I do believe that J.J. Abrams loves Star Wars, but yes. I think that he was out to prove something, and that made a bad movie. I don't think that you can blame. Now, I hate The Last Jedi. I hate it more than anything I've hated in a really long time. And it is one of those things where when I got out of this movie, I didn't hate it, but it was a bad movie. And I think that you can't blame Rian Johnson for why this movie is bad. And I know that I might catch some flack for the other people who hate The Last Jedi and who despise what was done in that, and who hate everything that he did. But J.J. Abrams decided to make a movie where he was throwing the middle finger up at Rian Johnson so much that he sacrificed good storytelling.
All right. So, again, I do vehemently disagree with you about Last Jedi.
Yes.
It is one of my favorites, and we have had this argument forever, so let's not rehash it. But
actually, I don't think we've ever had the argument. I think that we've specifically avoided it.
I mean, we kind of had an argument right after it was new over Hangouts, but we certainly never podcast.
Correct.
Maybe a future episode when we're who knows. But like, basically, so I did enjoy Last Jedi, but the problems with Rise of Skywalker are twofold. One, J.J. Abrams literally just had to throw the middle finger. So a full half of this movie's runtime was dedicated towards shitting on The Last Jedi.
Yes.
And instead of taking it, accepting it, like we literally just talked about how your episode, your fucking campaign episode 0 of our new campaign, no one said no to anything. JJ decided, fuck it, I hated all of those changes because Ryan told a story that I didn't like, so half of my runtime is going to be spent shitting on it actively. Problematic. My second problem with Rise of Skywalker is that the last half of the film that was left was this mess because JJ is a fan. Like you said, he is a legitimate fan of Star Wars. When he made Star Trek, he said, I'm only doing this because there is no chance that there will ever be new Star Wars. I won't get a chance to work on it. And this is the closest I get.
Yes.
Right? So he is a huge Star Wars fan. And my problem is when you look at JJ's career, whether it is like fucking Lost or whether it is the Mission Impossible 3
or the new Star Trek,
every single bit of those movies, like their biggest flaws, no matter what it is, whether it's a show like Alias, like no matter what JJ does, JJ has to come out with you thinking he's super clever and that he's a super fan. And that was the problem. So bringing in Palpatine as the villain and calling it back to that one Darth Plagueis speech where Palpatine straight up fucking lied to Anakin to manipulate him. He's like, no, it wasn't a lie. It works. Okay. So who did Palpatine possess in a Plagueis style to survive? And they're like, it doesn't matter. Fuck it.
We can't do that. All right. Like, here's what I want to do, because there's so much here to unpack. We're going to be bouncing around like a fucking pinball machine. Like, what I want to do is I want to break down like our thoughts about the movie as a whole without talking about like specific plot points. Okay. And then what I want to do is actually just go through the movie. Like, not minute to minute, but like, this is how it started. This is what happened in the middle. Here's what happened at the end. And like sort of talk about it, because I think talking about bringing Palpatine back is actually an interesting conversation, because the idea of having Ian McDermott back is great, because Ian McDermott kills it. He is batshit fucking crazy. Like, I love having Thanos or fucking Steppenwolf, if you like Justice League more like Nathan, who's, this dark, cool villain with, dark, cool speeches, who's sort of a weird anti-hero or whatever. Where you're just like, oh, that's a cool villain. Sometimes I just like having a cackling batshit psychopath who you're just like, no, that dude is 100% crazy.
Ian McDermott was the only saving grace of this film. And part of the reason I wanted part of the reason I wanted to talk about it now is we've had all of these Colin Trevorrow fucking spoilers, and holy shit, would that movie have been 100,000 times better?
Way better, yes.
We will never get it, which is sad.
That's another. Maybe we'll do a follow-up on the Colin Trevorrow script, yes.
And like, listen, when you look at what Colin Trevorrow has directed and written, I'm actually also glad. Like, yes, the script was better, but the dude has basically only done Jurassic World. Like, this isn't great for us to just be like, let's pin our Star Wars hopes on him. So, overall, my problems with Rise of Skywalker is partly what you said, where you're just like, he spent so long shitting on Last Jedi that he didn't take the time to set up and tell his own story. And that is a big part of it. That is a big part of the problems of this movie.
Well, he's trying to tell 2 movies worth of story in one movie.
Yes.
He has basically erased The Last Jedi to the point where the only retaining story point that carries over into this movie is that Luke Skywalker is dead.
Yeah.
That's the only story point that carries over. Every other story point in this movie is completely useless. There's almost no reason to watch The Last Jedi. You could basically go from Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker and miss virtually nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely. My other problem is, like I said, and not even getting into like the JJ needs to prove that he's clever and prove that he is a fan, is I think my biggest fucking problem is that every moment of potential emotional weight and emotional impact is instantly reversed.
The character death catfishing, yeah, that was
catfishing, and to me, I'm just like, it was such horseshit.
It was
because
so
like
bad.
In Force Awakens, Han Solo dies, and that was startling.
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna say it, like, in that moment,
I was upset. I cried.
You did not expect that to happen, and it was startling. In The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker dies. Not as startling as Han dying. And again, like you said,
when Luke Skywalker died, it was just confusing. Like, you can force yourself to death? Like, I feel like I should have heard about this. At some point or another, somebody should have explained that if you force too hard, you could die. I feel like that is an important thing. Chapter 1 of your Jedi training. Don't force too hard. You'll fucking die.
Yes. And so going into Rise of Skywalker, there is an expectation at this point that original trilogy characters could die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have the fucking catfish on Chewie, we have the catfish on 3PO, and the fact that JJ was unable or unwilling to actually tell a story about that emotional weight. And like that's even, just to take a step back, one of my problems with the MCU as a whole is when you have these moments. I mean, really, other than, and listen, this is more spoilers, but fuck off, it's even older. Other than Tony Stark dying at the end of Endgame, no MCU movie, despite there being 19 of them, lets you dwell on heavy emotional moments.
Right.
You know, they always break that shit up. And this is that, but to like the fuck you extreme, to the point where it's like no one even cares. So they kill Chewbacca for like 2 minutes of screen time. And then they literally erase 3PO for 5 minutes of screen time because they want to get they want to get 2 quick jokes out of it. And then boom, everything's back to normal. And you're just like, it was so frustrating and it was so infuriating because 3PO has been around for 8 movies at that point. He's seen some shit. And yeah, he had a memory wipe between episodes 3 and 4 because George Lucas forgot the protocol droids were factory standards, so he made a kid in the desert make one. Oh my god, the prequels are so bad. But like, the prequels are so bad.
Well, okay, here's the thing, right? Like, there is a weird groupthink in Disney.
Like 5 years. And the idea of him going away and being gone, the emotional weight of that to people who have known him for that long. Like, you could have played that up. Mm-hmm. This is supposed to be a sad moment. But instead we get one slapstick, I don't think you're very nice, to Poe. And then we have the, what? You can't put something in, and he's back. Yes. And you're just like, fuck, guys. And like Chewbacca fought in the fucking Clone Wars. In Solo, they're like, you're 140 years old or whatever the age is. So it's just like, if you killed that character and you had the fucking balls to stick with it, he was basically Rey's father, because when Han Solo died, and Chewie, they went to the fucking planet to go find Luke together. And we don't even get time as an audience to see how this character would feel to that. And you're just like, what the fuck, JJ? So like, those are my 2 big things.
Yeah,
abide by either.
For me, the things that genuinely ruined this movie for me are that the J.J. Abrams decided that it was more important to tell Rian Johnson to go fuck himself. And don't get me wrong, because I hate The Last Jedi, I got a good giggle every time that he did it. But by the time you get to the end of the movie, it just ruins the movie as a whole, because you realize that he is sacrificing a good story in order to tell the story that he thinks should have been told. And it really does create this weird imbalance between what we want to sort of see happen and what it would actually be enjoyable and entertaining to watch. And it sort of fucks it up. The other problem with this movie is the pacing. It is at breakneck speed. It is so fucking crazy. The pacing and the editing in this movie is so bad You know, they talk about Star Wars: A New Hope being like the poster child for how editing makes a movie good, how you can edit a movie to make it amazing. And there's actually a really, really good documentary, like video essay on YouTube that you can watch about how editing saved Star Wars and how like George Lucas and his wife basically turned what was essentially a horrifically bad movie into a brilliant, well-paced, action-filled movie just through editing. And this movie has none of that. There's no good editing. There's nothing that happens in this that makes any sense. There are entire sequences of the movie that are insane. You know, like when we were talking about the Emperor. Like the Emperor's plan is like worse than the Joker's from fucking The Dark Knight. Like it's ridiculous. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But those are the things that really upset me. And what really made this movie bad for me was that everything was so fast that even when they stopped to take a second to breathe and try to focus on more emotional moments, there just wasn't enough time given. You know, you talked about when 3PO gets his memory erased, you know, that you need to dwell on that for a little bit. Some like shit needs to happen. You need to come back around to it. But they don't, because then immediately they got to do another thing. And then immediately they got to bang to another thing. And this movie went to more planets than Rogue One, and I didn't think that was possible.
Oh my god, right? No, because like again, like let's be real here. So they start on planet A, the rebel base. Then they go to Burning Man on planet B.
Oh, okay.
And then
Fuck me.
And then from Burning Man they go to Endor, but not the Endor you want them to go.
No. They don't go to Endor. They go to Ice Planet in space. Remember where Babu Freak is?
See, oh shit, you're totally right.
You forgot a planet.
And listen, I've seen this movie twice, okay? Because I walked out of the first time we had the call, and I was like, you know what? I really want to see this movie again. I actually paid the money to go see it in IMAX because I'm like, I want to enjoy the special effects, and maybe it makes more sense the second time. And legitimately, there are things that you catch the second time because you know they're coming. So, because you've only seen them once, right?
Yeah, I do want to take my kids to go see it because I am interested in watching it again. I think I might enjoy it more if I watch it again, but
I don't think you will.
Yeah, probably not.
But anyway, on the at Burning Man, when they grab Chewbacca and you're like, oh my god, there's a second shuttle. There is legitimately a frame in that shot that is like half a second long, maybe a full second, where they flash to the transport and there are two side by side. So like he's, it's not a bait and switch, but like you legitimately don't notice that until a repeat viewing where you're like, oh, he wasn't fucking with me. There were two transports there, but it's so bad.
Yeah.
But
again, I'll talk about that sequence at length a little bit later.
Okay, so then Ice Planet is planet C. Then they go to Endor, planet D, which tells them where Exegol is, and that's planet E. And you're just like, holy shit. And that's not even counting the opening sequence.
That's correct, where they're on Mustafar.
Fuck me. Which makes no sense, because when did the lava world that Darth Vader burned to death on become all tree-y and shit? And actually, I've read an article. There was a bullshit vaporware VR game.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And JJ is just like, see, I am a fan.
Correct.
Because, and that's what I mean, where I'm like,
yep.
His desire to tell you how clever he is ruins the film.
Okay, so let's get into the film itself and sort of break it down. The film opens with the opening crawl, as Star Wars tends to do, unless it's Rogue One. And they immediately, the opening crawl is ridiculous. They open the movie by going, Palpatine's back, bitches. He called the universe and he said, hey, everybody.
Is the dead speak. And I was like, are you talking about Frankenfisher?
Yeah. Ooh. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Fuck.
The opening crawl essentially introduces Palpatine right out the gates. Like the trailers basically hinted at the idea that Palpatine was coming back without any information about what form he would take or what it would be. Is this a Force ghost? Is it something else? We knew Ian McDiarmid was going to be in the movie, but we didn't know what capacity he would be in the movie. So they opened the movie with this crawl that goes, fucking Palpatine's back. It's Palpatine the Palpatine. And he calls everybody and goes, hey, everybody, I'm back. I'm going to launch a gigantic fleet that's going to take over the galaxy. By the way, you've got 18 days. Why? Dramatic tension, I guess. And like it's terrible. Like, opening sequence of this movie is bad. It immediately makes everything, all of your anticipation for this character go away. And it makes all of your connection to the story from The Last Jedi disappear. Because...
Well, yeah, like not even talking about the crawl, but the fact that like the first scene already is like a fucking montage. Like the literal opening scene of the movie is like, time seems to go by faster when you fade out in a montage. And then we literally just have fucking Palpatine spend 5 minutes of screen time shitting on The Last Jedi. Yeah. Shitting on every bit of The Last Jedi and everything that it did. Oh, well, I didn't like that you destroyed the helmet, so the helmet's back. And you're just like, what the... That? You got caught up on that?
You didn't like that Snoke died. Snoke was a clone. It didn't matter. I was controlling him remotely from across the galaxy somehow. Like... The issue that I have with the opening sequence of this movie, where for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Kylo Ren gets the message about Palpatine being back and is like, fuck that, I'm the new emperor. So he goes on a tear. He goes to Mustafar, even though they don't tell us it's Mustafar in the movie. He finds the Sith Wayfinder, which is the plot MacGuffin #1. Keep that in mind. God. And he uses the Sith Wayfinder to find the planet Testicle, where he goes and lands. There's a gigantic temple hovering over the ground where the Emperor is. There's strobe lights everywhere. There are these weird hooded figures like he's the fucking Undertaker or some shit. And he's fucking talking to him, and he's like, I'm the voice who's been in your head all this time. Ah! And you see like the vats with Snoke clones in them. And what's stupid about it is there's a conversation that Kylo Ren has with Hux and with Admiral Pride. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we can't trust the Final Order. Fuck me. We can't trust the Final Order. Like, but their ships... the ships would, increase the size of our fleet by 100-fold. Which is weird, because that sort of like insinuates there's like 7 Star Destroyers left. But like basically... what ends up happening is that, like, they're saying, no way, we're not going to do this. I'm the fucking Emperor. I'll just go kill Palpatine. Mm-hmm. And he goes there, and he has a conversation with Palpatine that is, like, incredibly short, where Palpatine goes, no, you're not gonna. So go get Rey and kill her. Okay. And he's like, you got it, boss. And he goes directly back to the exact same group of people and goes, we're joining the Final Order. And then he goes off to try to find Rey. And then this is when we cut to Rey training on a planet. We don't know if it's Endor or Yavin or whatever the fuck it is, but she's training on a planet. She's doing a bunch of flips. She's doing her Mary Sue thing, and it just continues to go. And I'll comment on the Mary Sue thing. I do not think that Rey was a Mary Sue after Force Awakens. There was a lot of people who said that, and I was like, you guys are fucking stupid. This is not what this character is. But by the end of the third movie, I'm like, yeah, that's the definition of a Mary Sue.
Well, yeah, because like
she takes no damage, not a single scratch between all 3 movies. Every character immediately likes her for no reason whatsoever, and she never loses. Like, it's fucking crazy.
No, and like, listen, you're right. After Force Awakens, again, it was fine. How is what she did any different than fucking Luke bullseyeing the fucking?
That's right.
There's no difference. Okay, great. You tapped into the Force because you're open to it. Fine, I'm okay with it. And even her training in Last Jedi, you can't tell, like, when people are like, oh, she didn't spend any time there at all, and I'm like, and Luke's 48-hour Dagobah spa,
right?
is somehow okay.
All that training he got in the hour-long ride to Alderaan.
Yeah. Well, not even that, because again, when you talk about Empire, he spent like 72 hours on Dagobah before he fucked off to Bespin, because you're again the timeline of him on Dagobah, again, not knowing how long it even took him to get there at light speed.
Right. The point being, it wasn't a problem in The Force Awakens.
No, it wasn't a problem in The Force Awakens. It wasn't a problem in The Last Jedi. But then in like Rise of Skywalker, like, first of all, why does everyone like her? Poe has never had a conversation with her.
Correct.
Ever. But now they're like best friends and they trust each other the way that like Han and Luke do. And I'm like, really?
So the movie continues, and we cut over to Rey, and she's training, and Rian Johnson hints at like, oh, she took the journals of the wills, the Jedi texts, and then she's using them to train. But we don't ever see that. The only thing they actually reference in the movie that has any relation to the Jedi text is that somebody goes, Sith Wayfinder, it's a triangle. She goes, I remember a triangle in this book. Look.
Right?
And you're like, wow, what a great continuation of the story from the last movie, JJ. And Finn and Poe are clearly gay, but they don't want to admit it. And the story kind of continues on. They do the weird like hyperspace skipping, which doesn't make any goddamn sense. But again, it's just, let's throw another middle finger up to Rian Johnson to get rid of his whole they can track us through hyperspace bullshit. And, by the time the story actually gets started, we're like 20 minutes into the movie and nothing has happened. And
because like I said, the opening thing was literally setting up Palpatine shits on Last Jedi, and then Kylo Ren is just like, we're Last Order now.
Final Order.
Or Final Order. Yeah, we're Final Order now. Why? Reasons. And you're just like, okay. And then again, even when you're talking about like Rey as the Mary Sue, you're not even acknowledging the Frankenfisher in the room.
Well, okay, let's talk about Frankenfisher here.
Okay. First of all, Carrie Fisher legitimately died of a heart attack before Last Jedi even opened in theaters.
Yeah, she OD'd on pills.
Yep.
And then that was that. But they had some scenes that they had recorded for The Last Jedi but not used.
Yes, because they were edited out of the film for whatever reason. So JJ decides to make the literal terrible decision to
just
take this footage and then fucking CGI the ever-living fuck out of it so that this footage of Carrie is in whatever environment he wants it for, and then he just fucking shits it into the movie. And the problem with it is every last scene of it is so fucking awkward because you have legitimate actors and actresses like fucking Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Oscar Isaacs. They're all acting these scenes against footage that was filmed 3 goddamn years ago. And so you always have this disconnect where, one, they're never in the same frame, and two, you might have like fucking Daisy Ridley giving the fucking most emotional, heartfelt fucking dialogue delivery ever, and then you just have this robotic, out of sequence feeling Carrie Fisher, like Frankenfisher bullshit.
Yeah.
And so it was both unnecessary and it was jarring. It was so fucking jarring to have those moments.
And this was a thing that I had said about Rogue One, where they had, the Franken Cushing, where you had Peter Cushing in there, and the Uncanny Valley was pretty crazy, and we all just kind of accepted it because we were happy to see Tarkin in all of his old glory and stuff like that. But like the actor who they have playing Tarkin looks enough like Tarkin. Like, just go with it, guys. Like, it's really unnecessary to feel like you have to do this with this character. You could have just stuck with the actor who was, I believe, the actor who played Scorpius in Farscape, and who was also Tarkin at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So it was like, this guy can do it. He's a good actor. Like, just let him do it. But with Carrie Fisher and what they did with it, everybody knows she's dead, and everybody knows these scenes are patchwork. And it doesn't matter how good Daisy Ridley does, and it doesn't matter how good any of the other actors do. You as an audience member will do nothing but try to pick out the shit in those scenes. It's like when they tried to CG, Henry Cavill's mustache off for Justice League. It didn't matter. Every fucking scene, all I can do is look at his upper lip. Fuck
my
you.
God. And that's all you're doing is you're fucking staring
That's all I can do is look at his upper lip.
Like, listen, you may have had footage left, but you should have killed her in the screen.
And they did a great job with the footage that they had. It looked really good. They clearly spent a lot of time and effort doing it, but I don't think there was any way of doing it that would not ruin those scenes. And it was completely useless because Maz Kanata's there. Just put Maz Kanata into every scene with Leia, and that whole sequence is fine. We get to explain a little bit more about Maz Kanata. We find out that she used to be a Jedi from the Old Republic, which matches what we saw in Force Awakens. She gets to talk about Luke's lightsaber. She gets to continue what she did in the Force Awakens in terms of training Rey. But instead, Maz Kanata's just standing in the background doing fuck all.
I mean, not as much as like fucking Rose.
Oh, poor Rose. Rose got done dirty. Listen, I hated Rose's character. I hated her character in The Last Jedi, but even I felt bad for her in this movie. Hey, Rose, we're going on an adventure. You want to come? Nah, Leia's got me doing some paperwork. All right, see you, buddy.
And that was it. Like, at the end of the day, I think someone timed it out, and I think she only had like a minute and like 20 seconds.
It's like a solid like minute 27 seconds of screen time. Yeah, it's fucking awful.
Dismal.
It's terrible.
And the worst part is like the fucking like Star Wars celebration at Disneyland before the release of Rise of Skywalker. Disney flew in Kelly Marie Tran. They fucking brought her out on stage. And someone timed it. They're like, the standing ovation that she got at Disneyland was longer than the amount of screen time she had in this film. And you're just like, holy shit, they did her so fucking dirty.
So anyways, let's push forward here.
Right.
They figure out that they need to find Testicle because Palpatine's back. And so they're going to go on a mission to find MacGuffin number 1, which is the Sith Wayfinder. There's a Sith Wayfinder out there. They have a very, very vague clue that sends them to Burning Man. Alien Burning Man is on a planet in the far outer rim. And they go there with no information and with no direction on what to do or anything. But they go, there's a bunch of people here, so we're going to go to Burning Man. Thus begins the most psychotic sequence of events I've seen in a movie. I can't remember another movie with a more psychotic sequence of events. And I would like you to just let me rant on this shit as I break through. I mean, feel free to chime in because I know you've got some insights too. But after like the first 25 minutes of the movie where we're just shitting on The Last Jedi, we're throwing up middle fingers and we're just doing a bunch of nonsense to set up a plot that is not even connected to the actual plot of this movie in anything more than like an ancillary sense. They arrive on Burning Man. A small alien creature says, "Hey, Rey, would you like a necklace?" And she goes, "You're small and cute. I'll take a necklace." And then as soon as she stands up, Kylo Ren force times her and is like, "Hey, where are you?" And she goes, "Fuck you. I'm not telling you where I am. You're bad."
That's amazing. I love it.
And then he goes, "No, fuck you. Where are you?" And she goes, "Fuck you. I'm not telling you where I am." So he goes, "Yo, give me that fucking necklace." She's like, "No, a cute alien woman just gave it to me." He rips the necklace off her. Force time cancels like the Wi-Fi fucking cuts out. And the very next fucking scene is another Imperial officer carrying the necklace down the hallway going, "We track the necklace to Burning Man." And Kylo Ren goes, "Do we have stormtroopers at Burning Man?" And they go, "You're fucking right, we got stormtroopers at Burning Man." And he goes, "Great, tell the stormtroopers to arrest them." And then the very next fucking scene is a stormtrooper putting a finger to his ears and going, "I see them, sir. I'm going to arrest them." and then...
Even if force time is instantaneous, they break the speed of light to get that message through. Because even if we assume communications travel at the speed of light, it is instantaneous from who the fuck knows where Kylo is? To the stormtroopers, they're like, we see them.
We've got him, sir. So anyways, the stormtroopers are like, fucking get him! And they start running, which is like, yo, 3 stormtroopers is nothing for Rey and these people. Why are they running? But they run. And then Lando pulls up in his weird panel van and is like, come on, everybody, it's time for a party. They jump into old man Lando's panel van, and then he drives them to safety while he explains that Leia called me. And you're like, fucking when did Leia call you? What the fuck? And then he explains that he's here on this planet because 30 years ago, him and Luke Skywalker were hunting a Jedi hunter on this planet because he was a bad guy. And then you sit there going like, did you just decide to stay? Like, what sort of business opportunities is Lando Calrissian, taking?
Have never had such a breakdown of time and distances since Game of Thrones season 7.
This shit's fucking bananas. It gets even worse.
Where Gendry is literally Barry Allen.
That's correct. Yes, very much. He's Barry Allen. So what ends up happening then is he drives his panel van roughly a block up the road to the edge of Burning Man and is like, yo, there's some hover skiffs. Get out of here. And they're like, thanks, Lando. He's like, cool, I'm going to stick around. So they jump on the skiffs, and one of the most boring, nonsensical chase scenes I've ever seen in a movie happens for roughly 6 minutes. And then
they can fly now.
Oh my God, that I almost walked out of the theater at that point. That was the worst joke and joke delivery I don't think I've ever seen anything fall flat as they fly now. They fly now. They fly now. Like, oh my fucking God, that was fucking shit.
But no, you're totally right. Like, it's totally fucking meaningless. It is action for the sake of action because JJ in this moment cannot tell a compelling story. He cannot bother with any fucking character development because, again, I'm still meant to believe in this moment that Rey, who has on screen spent 65 seconds with Poe, most of them yelling at each other over the wholly unnecessary Millennium Falcon bit because, hey, did you know that TIE fighters have fucking faster than light drives now?
They do have hyper. All the First Order TIE fighters had hyperdrives. That's just, I mean, come on, man. Put your glasses up your nose and fucking nerd up here. I'm going to continue this nonsensical sequence here, and we're going to push forward because what ends up happening after this terrible chase sequence is that they fucking crash their hover skiff into the ground and roll into a quicksand pit. At which point, Rey forgets that she has force powers and watches all of her friends die.
Because, again, remember, at the end of The Last Jedi, she literally lifts all of these fucking boulders.
Oh, so and remember the, boulder helix she was doing on her, training fucking thing? Yeah.
The fucking boulder helix from earlier in the film.
Yeah.
So the idea of literally lifting everybody out of this quicksand would just... It would solve the problem, but again, she forgets the Force.
She forgets that the Force exists.
But you know what? In the prequels, all the Jedi ever did was forget the Force exists. So
they were bad, and that was bad. That was bad. So what ends up happening is they crash their ship into a quicksand pit. It's the only quicksand pit that we ever see. And then they sink through this quicksand pit into a cave without any explanation as to why the quicksand is not falling into the cave, but they fell through the quicksand into the cave. It's insane. Then a snake shows up. Before that happens, we find out that the quicksand pit that they randomly crashed into in the forbidden desert happens to be the same quicksand pit that the Jedi hunter that Luke and Lando were hunting crashed his Sith Mercedes into and died in.
Yes.
And when I say Sith Mercedes, whatever you just pictured is correct. Yeah, because this was a hover car. A very fancy hover car with a Sith emblem on the end of the hood. This is like driving a Mercedes through Burbank with a Nazi swastika on the front of your car.
And now, like, listen, okay, if the car falls in, this quicksand was literally right in front of the ship. Which
we'll get to that.
No, hold on. But it begs the question why he didn't fall through when he was trying to go to town. But anyway,
because he was in a car.
Not only does the Mercedes fall through, but he decides to starve to death 4 feet from his car.
Correct.
Now, listen, even if we accept that quicksand doesn't have sand fall through and there's like a firm roof that sand stays in, but people don't, and you're in this cave system, if you fell through, Lang, you're driving in your fucking car, your big ass boat.
That's right.
You drive into some quicksand. Are you just going to be like, I shall sit here until I die?
I assumed he wasn't wearing his seatbelt.
Or are you going to try to explore things? Because again, his body is laid out perfectly as if this is an Area 51 autopsy.
Oh, man.
And they're just like, oh, look, a dagger that happens to have the clue.
All right. You're getting ahead of this nonsensical train of thought here.
Even if the car was there is literally no reason to believe that the body would be. Because if they found the body in the car, it'd be like, oh my God, he died. He must have suffocated.
Or he, went ahead through the windshield type thing. You know what I mean?
No, they find him like 5 feet away, just laying perfectly. And they're like, oh, look, the clue, MacGuffin number 2.
Well, and again, so they crash into the same sandpit as the Jedi Hunter crashed his Sith Mercedes. Immediately, Rey is like, what's in this fucker's pockets? She does the D&D thing. She loots the body immediately. And she finds MacGuffin number 2. MacGuffin number 2 helps you find MacGuffin number 1. And what you end up doing here is they go, wow, this is a crazy dagger. It's got shit written on it. Who can read that? And 3PO's like, I can. They're like, okay, we'll come back to this later. They go through the cave and a giant snake shows up and the snake is hurt. How did it get hurt? Fucking whatever. Who cares? Why would you ask that question? Immediately, Rey goes, animals love me. And she heals the snake and the snake's like, all right, we're cool. And then snakes away and then opens a tunnel to the surface that leads directly to the Jedi Hunter's ship that has been sitting at the top of a ridge in the Forbidden Desert for 30 years on a planet with Jawas.
I was about to say on a planet with Jawas, and if we remember anything from The Mandalorian, it's if you leave your ship unattended for singles of hours, that shit is a skeleton now. The Jawas have stripped that shit.
It's unlocked, and it still works. So they go up on top of the hill. They go inside the ship. There's a couple of loose, slow moments where Rey has to consider, like, wow, I recognize this ship. Shit's getting crazy. Kylo Ren's force timing me. I don't know what my life is about. They wake up a small droid, and the small droid goes beep, beep, boop, buy my toy. And then immediately, Rey goes, oh my God, I feel some shit. Finn, I need to go outside and deal with something. And then he goes, all right. And she leaves and she goes out about 300 feet in front of the ship. Now, I'd like you all to picture in your head that there's a ship on top of a hill. Guess what? There's another ship here too. It's the Knights of Ren gigantic dagger ship that has been following them around.
Oh, what a letdown.
And then, oh my God. And then, Finn is like, oh my God, we gotta go. Chewbacca, go tell Rey we gotta go. Tell her to come back inside the ship. Chewbacca walks out of the ship on the hill, doesn't see the Knights of Ren ship, and doesn't see the 2 prison ships that are apparently parked there, and doesn't see the 2 Knights of Ren at the bottom of the hill, who we find out are also mutes. So I assume it was some sort of weird sign language conversation that they had between each other that was like, hey, isn't that fucking Chewbacca? And they're like, yeah, let's fucking get him. And so they go up to Chewbacca and they sign language some shit at him like, yo, Chewbacca, you're under arrest. And he's like, ah, fuck, I guess I'm under arrest. He doesn't shoot his blaster. He doesn't scream, Chewbacca shit. So anyways, Finn looks out the back of the ship, sees one of the 2 ships and goes, oh my God, they're arresting Chewbacca. And there's literally a scene where we see stormtroopers reading Chewbacca his rights. It's fucking stupid. They're like looking through his shit. Like they're not even concerned with the ship on the top of the hill less than 100 feet away. They're just reading. They're like, listen, we got to process this Wookiee before we go forward with this whole thing. At which point, Kylo Ren's TIE fighter comes flying in, strafes them, and attempts to shoot at Rey. She knocks it out of the air with her super cool black flip from the trailer. That ship crashes, but he is fucking fine. He immediately walks out of the wreckage of this ship and is like, he's like, yo, fucking fight me. Finn sees this and is like, oh my God, Chewbacca's being arrested and Rey is fighting fucking Kylo Ren. So he yells at Rey and he's like, Rey, we gotta fucking go. They stole Chewbacca. Then they reenact the sequence where Rey and Kylo Ren are doing a tug of war with the lightsaber, but instead it is a shuttle. And, nobody else saw the third shuttle and nobody saw the Knights of Ren ship. And nobody saw anything else, not to mention the fact that in the span of a half hour, the First Order got all the way across the galaxy. I mean, I feel like it would take more time to like put on your fighter clothes and get into a TIE fighter, launch it, and fly down to the planet and find them in the middle of fucking nowhere. Because it's like, how did they find them? How did they know they were there? How did they know for a second that they were at this specific location in the Forbidden Desert?
Well, especially because you can't even say like, oh, the troopers were chasing them. No, all of those troopers were fucking dead. And then they continued to drive along before they fucking fell in the quicksand. No, like it just, for me, the part
that is the most psychotic sequence of events I've ever seen in a movie. Like the level of coincidence and like, random encounter and like random chance that comes into play with that is nonsensical. How stupid it is. And then, oh my gosh, Rey uses lightning to kill Chewbacca. Don't worry. A minute later, we find out that he's alive. So don't worry. Chewbacca's still okay.
Because at no point has she ever used lightning before. Nope. But at this point, JJ has to be like, she's a Palpatine. She was always a Palpatine. But Ryan said she was a nobody. But get it? Last Jedi sucks. Lightning. Force lightning. And you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, JJ.
So anyways, somehow Rey jumps back on the ship and they fly away. The ships in orbit, the fleet of First Order ships in orbit apparently can't stop them. There's no TIE fighters other than Kylo Ren's TIE fighter. And even the Knights of Ren don't even try to stop them. They just fly away and they go to the planet and we meet fucking Kerry Russell's character. J.J. Abrams said to his friend Kerry Russell, hey, you want to make $1 million? And she's like, well, do I have to spend more than 3 hours? He's like, 3, maybe 4. And then they filmed her into the movie.
The JJ's breakout, what got him his career was the show called Felicity, starring Kerry Russell.
That's correct.
And it's the only reason she is there. It serves no narrative purpose other than to say, Poe is straight, you guys.
Poe is so straight, you fucking idiots.
Is acting, and no matter what John Boyega is acting, Poe is super duper straight. Because
Poe likes chicks.
Oh, do we see her face? You never see her face.
You see the top of the bridge of her nose and her eyes with a lot of makeup. So anyways, the movie at this point devolves into a ridiculous sequence of events where they go to the Weird Ice planet. They introduce you to somebody who they want you to think is cuter than Baby Yoda. He is not. And then they wipe 3PO's memory, and 3PO's like, the dagger says to go to Endor. And they're like, sweet, let's go to Endor. But oh my God, the First Order tracked us here now too. How? Fucking whatever. Shut up. They're just here, okay? They're everywhere. So they have to go rescue Chewbacca because Rey is like, yo, Chewbacca's alive. I sense his furry presence. And they're like, how are we going to fly up onto that ship? And then you start thinking to yourself, like, are you going to let yourself get captured like in A New Hope? Are you going to do some sort of like double take thing where you're like posing as stormtroopers? Are you going to come up with some other idea? No. Instead, what happens is Poe has a conversation with Kerry Russell where she goes, I fucking hate you, but I miss that sweet Poe Dickrin in my pussy. So, hey, I got this First Order General's medallion, and it is a free pass to the entire galaxy. I would never give it up. Do you want to come with me and go live on a beach somewhere and fuck because we're so straight? And he goes, nope, I got responsibilities here in the Empire, but we're going to go save our friend Chewbacca. She's like, oh shit, Chewbacca? Here, take the medallion. And then they take the First Order medallion and place it into the 3.0 medallion slot on their 30-year-old fucking ship. You know, because every 30-year-old ship that was created before the First Order was created has a First Order General's medallion slot in it. I mean, the only...
That is standard technology.
Exactly. The only problem with medallion is that you try to put it in the first time, it doesn't work. You turn it around the other side, it also doesn't work. And then you turn it around again, and it goes in that time for some reason. That's the only thing you get out of the First Order. General First Order fucking medallion. So then they fly into the only empty hangar bay ever seen in Star Wars, land their ship, and we find out that Kylo Ren has all of Chewbacca's stuff in his bedroom. Which is the weirdest shit I've ever seen, where it's just like, yeah, take away all of Chewbacca's stuff. Put it in my room.
We haven't even gotten to how dirty they did fucking Hux.
We're not even there yet, but yeah. So anyways, one of the stupidest moments in the movie is when he decides, Rey's not on this ice planet. I better force time her again. And he's like, where are you? And she's like, I keep telling you that I am not going to tell you where I am. And he's like, I'm going to start grabbing shit. And she goes, no, don't. And he pulls Darth Vader's helmet out. And you could just like feel through the mask him having this surprised look on his room. Like, she's in my fucking room. Fucking, she's on the ship. This bitch is touching my stuff. Like, and everybody starts scrambling. And then they save Chewbacca. We find out that Hux is a spy, which I actually thought was kind of a good turn, except for the fact that they then immediately kill him.
No, but see, I didn't, because at the end of, like, again, look at Hux. Look at Hux's fucking character.
Well, they ruined his character in The Last Jedi, so I didn't think there was any salvaging it in this one. That's why they brought Admiral Pride into it.
I didn't even think that they did. But again, he has to shit on it, right? Because in Force Awakens, Hux is the guy giving the Hitler speech, man. This is the true believer of the First Order. In Last Jedi, yes, he fucks up, but then he redeems himself, and fucking Snoke is just like, this is why you keep rabid dogs and all this shit. And so it's just like he was 100% on board with the First Order. And even that moment where it's just like, the Chancellor is dead, like, you know, long live, like, it worked because Kylo asserted why Force users, and especially Sith, are in charge. But then again, JJ just has to shit on The Last Jedi. Yeah. So even though Hux has begrudgingly accepted this new order where fucking Snoke is dead and Kylo's in charge, and yeah, they were kind of played off of each other, but at no point in Force Awakens or Last Jedi would Hux have ever thought he was second in command. But then they were just like, fuck The Last Jedi. He's a mole now. And I'm like, why did you
But he did say in the movie, he goes like, I don't care who wins so long as Kylo Ren loses. And it was very clear that he hated Kylo Ren after The Last Jedi. Yeah. And that he did not like him in The Force Awakens either. So I felt like it was at least an interesting turn.
It was just to shit on The Last Jedi because, again, you're forgetting this was the true believer. This guy
Hux in The Force Awakens was great.
Order so much that when fucking Kylo was just in Force Awakens was like, maybe we should get some clones. He was like, fuck you. Like, really, he's straight up said, fuck you. No, this way works. Child soldiers work. He believed in them wholeheartedly. And even if he hated Kylo, you cannot take someone that believes in that ideology and just be like, but he will sabotage the supreme leader of this order because he's petty. And like, you even knew it was there because they even put him with General Pride, where it's just like Hux was always top of command, but because JJ wanted to shit on Last Jedi, he had to put a new Hux 2.0, in every single scene with Hux.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I did not like what they did with Hux either. But I think that was, for me, I disagree with you in the sense that I feel like they ruined Hux in The Last Jedi, and then that was a big part of it. But moving forward here, they then take off to Endor because they've learned about the Sith, that MacGuffin number 2, the Sith dagger, will point toward the MacGuffin number 1, the Sith Wayfinder, and they land on Endor, but not Endor that we want, not the Forest Moon of Endor, but,
oh my God,
Endor.
It managed to be both like, hey, throwback to Endor, and disappointing at the exact same.
It was fucking stupid. And then we find out that the Sith dagger is a fucking Goonies dagger because it has a protractor built into the hilt that points to a portion of the wreckage where the Sith Wayfinder is located, which doesn't make sense because the same design is cut into both sides of the dagger, and you have to be standing on the exact right position on the cliff, and you have to be standing at, you're telling me that after 30 years, like, it hasn't sunk, that sea levels haven't changed. Like, this is fucking stupid. I was in the theater cackling at how stupid it was. I was the only person just genuinely laughing at how dumb this was. And so she pulls the protractor out of the blade of the Sith dagger and goes, there it is. That's where we got to go. And then Rey, a person who was raised on a desert planet, doesn't know how to swim, gets on a skiff, and then traverses like 100-foot swells.
Immediately knows how to fucking sail.
This is the Mary Sue shit to like the levels of like inanity. Like, it's completely fucking nonsense. So, and again, can we talk about the fact that Rey is constantly surrounded by water and waves and everything, and is in a white t-shirt and never gets wet?
I mean, listen, it's not that kind of movie. They're not going to have a wet t-shirt contest.
Kylo Ren is soaking wet. He is drenched, and they cut to her, and that bitch is dry as day. Like, it is fucking crazy. At this point, the movie just devolves into a spiraling sequence of events that leads to the climax of the movie. There's very little of substance in between. Mary shows up from the Lord of the Rings for a period of time, and like Lando is suddenly back on this planet.
Also gets more screen time than Kelly Marie Tran.
That's true. I don't think that's true, but it's close. I think it's pretty close because he's in the background of a few scenes as well. But I would say, I'm not even going to say I would put money on that. Okay, so they get the Sith Wayfinder and they go, we got to go to Testicle. But before that happens, there's a fight between Rey and Kylo Ren on the Death Star. It is probably the best action sequence in the movie. It is very awesomely shot. There is an amazing few shots that came out of the trailer and were sort of cut together for this. The only thing that really bothered me about this fight was that Kylo Ren has had his ass kicked by Rey for like 2 solid movies. Like, he's lost more fights than you can count at this point. And then when he fights her this time, he's like dipping and dodging, like he's freaking juking her. He doesn't even take his lightsaber out for the first hunk of the fight. And
then the moment he does, he starts to lose.
Well, the moment he does, he actually started to win. And Rey was like, yo, what the fuck happened? And then Leia goes, Ben, and then immediately dies because she forced too hard. And, I remember saying to a buddy of mine that so long as nobody else forced themselves to death or forced so hard that they died, I would be okay with this movie. And 3 more fucking people forced themselves to death in this movie. It was so goddamn stupid.
It was pretty fucking rough. And I mean, like, listen, the fact that like Magical Force MacGuffin had to, like, Jon Favreau had to literally write it into the Mandalorian to prep us all for Magical Force healing MacGuffin. Right. Otherwise it'd be like, wait, the fuck is this? But even then, like, listen, okay, whatever the fight, Ben, she forces too hard, she dies. Fucking Rey stabs him, Rey heals him. And this is the moment where, again, JJ decides to spend 10 minutes shitting on The Last Jedi, as well as making shit that makes no sense whatsoever. And then doing Kylo Ren dirty, just all in like this 10-minute span. So Rey Magical Force MacGuffins him to make sure that he lives. And then he's like, oh my God, someone cared for me, and he's back to the light side.
Yeah, and this was a bad redemption arc. Vader is a good redemption arc that has a lot of character built into it. This is a terrible redemption arc.
Even if you accept the fact that the fucking prequels are garbage, the Clone Wars TV show shows that Anakin, his biggest flaw has always been his attachment to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's why, he loved Ahsoka, and even though I haven't gotten there yet, in Rebels, apparently,
Mm-hmm.
they fight and he can't do shit about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Disney
Rebels
Plus
is very good.
probably starting to watch Rebels. It's great.
Rebels is very, very good. Yes.
But anyway, he's not able to do that because Anakin's flaw is his attachment to meaningful people in his life. He, from Obi-Wan, who rescues him. But anyway, it's the biggest thing. And that's why when the Emperor is trying to kill his son, in that moment, he can't, and he does choose the light.
That's right.
Now, compare that and contrast that with Kylo Ren, who made the choice he made the choice to go dark side. And yeah, sure, in Force Awakens, they always talk about Snoke manipulating him. But in The Last Jedi, love it or hate it, the overall message and the whole, thesis of the film is the notion of let go of the past, kill it if you have to. And Kylo says it time and time again. And what he is saying in those moments is not, I'm going to be Darth Vader. I'm going to be beholden to this person who is more powerful in the dark arts than me. It's why he kills Snoke in The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. It's why he is even trying to convince Rey to join him on this path of forging their own destiny. Let go of the past. That was the whole premise of the film. And then they're just like, well, someone was nice to him once, which, again, shits on The Last Jedi when Rey literally traveled to Snoke's flagship to try to convince him to join the light, which he rejected. And then he's like, wow, she saved my life. Oh, hi, dead dad. What's that? We're going to have a conversation. You're not a Force ghost. You're just a memory.
That's great.
Let me sit here getting more and more wet because it's raining and the waves and bullshit. And then he's like, and then again, JJ being clever, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I'm strong enough, which is, again, the same line he had Adam Driver, who is so good they waste him. Yes. I feel like Adam Driver in Rise
puts this movie on his back and carries it.
Yeah. Holy shit, he tries. He
really puts in the effort.
I
gotta push this forward, Nathan. I gotta push this forward.
They have to repeat, but again, he then just decides, in the same way that Darth Vader is like, I guess I'll murder children. They're just like, I guess I'm good now. There's no reason for it. It makes sense when you look at everything about the character and their journey. This choice literally makes no sense and runs counter to every choice they have ever made before.
Correct.
But fuck it, let's go. They're good now.
I liked the interaction between him and Harrison Ford. I thought that was a good callback to The Force Awakens and sort of him essentially having that conversation in his head and having it go a different way this time, the way that we had hoped it had gone the first time. The problem is that you can't have that scene based on everything that's come before because of the fact that, I'm sorry, JJ, you walked away from the second movie. You do have to now deal with the fact that somebody else did it differently and it's not the way that you wanted to do it. I'm sure that he had this plan. And we can agree that Kylo Ren is the most conflicted character who's ever appeared in Star Wars. But what it comes down to is that it is such a dramatic character shift that after this happens, you actually don't know what to think about Kylo Ren or Ben Solo because you don't know anything about his character from this point forward. And he has very, very few lines from this point forward. And it's incredibly confusing to the story because he just shows up as what I like to call him, MacGuffin number 3. So, Rey gets the magical plot MacGuffin, but because she found out that she is Palpatine's daughter, which was the absolute worst reveal I've ever seen in a film.
Oh my God. Listen.
It was just awful.
I was expecting it to just be like, you're a Kenobi, Rey.
Anything would have been better than that, even if he had doubled down on you're a nobody.
And that's exactly it. I'm just like, everyone was expecting the you're a Kenobi, and then Ryan in Last Jedi talking about like, you're a nobody, and then having like, fuckboy broomstick at the end. It actually leans into the extended universe where the Force attempts to create balance, and even if your puppy wasn't a Jedi, we will create Jedi to balance the Force, and that was this beautiful thing. And then they're just like, fuck you, Ryan, she's a Palpatine. Why? Because it makes no sense with anything that has ever come before, but I think it's clever, so fuck you. And you're like,
yeah,
oh,
it gets even more nonsensical when we actually break down Palpatine's plan, which I will do later. But the thing here is that Rey gets the MacGuffin #1, which we've been trying to get this entire time, but she's so angry about the Palpatine thing that she ditches her friends, flies to Octo, because she wants to be like Luke to go be with the fish nuns.
Oh my god, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, planet. You forgot about the fish nuns. She crashes her TIE fighter and then lights it on fire because it's super flammable, and then throws her lightsaber into it because she's done with this shit. And
metal
Luke
is flammable.
Yeah, metal just burns like it's tissue paper, right?
And Luke catches it and then shits on Last Jedi some more.
I mean, again, I like that because I hated Luke in The Last Jedi, so at least this kind of brought him back to the character that he was. But altogether, it was a throwaway scene, which genuinely bothered me. But she has two, like, right turn 90-degree angle character shifts in the span of 2 scenes. And it's just weird. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And what I said about The Last Jedi was that I didn't like Rey in The Last Jedi because she was so different from Rey in The Force Awakens. Rey in The Force Awakens was this bubbly, light, hopeful character. She reminded you of Luke. She had this light about her that made you like her, that made you want to help her, and made her this wondrous character. All she did in Last Jedi was cry and be angry, and in this one, all she did was sort of check out. And it was very, very strange to have her check out and then immediately go to sacrifice herself. So then Luke lifts his X-Wing out of the water, which again, it doesn't matter that it's been in the water for 30 years. Fuck it. Let's fly around the galaxy. So she plugs in the fucking, the Sith Wayfinder, which I assume you plug into the port right beside the First Order General's medallion slot that comes built into all ships.
No. But like, first of all, let's take a moment here. Because why was the fucking Wayfinder in that TIE fighter?
Because it was Kylo Ren's TIE fighter, and he used it to get to Exegol at the beginning of the movie.
And then that TIE fighter was destroyed.
So
out of the burning wreckage,
that was a different his TIE fighter.
He decided out of the burning wreckage of his TIE fighter, he decided to unplug it, put it in his pocket, have a tug of war.
That's right.
And then when he got back to his ship, he's like, I better make sure I don't lose this, because God knows I'd lose my keys and again, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. He plugs it into a completely different TIE fighter than the one that he went to Exegol with, and then flew that one to Endor. Like, this was the thing about like MacGuffin #3 there, where it's just like
this is what I'm saying. He's MacGuffin #3. So anyways, what's stupid about that too is later in the movie we find out that once you get to Exegol, finding it with the Sith Wayfinder, you actually don't need it. You can just follow the trail of a ship. Like, you already know how to get there. You don't need it again. Not to mention the fact that when she finds the Sith Wayfinder on the Death Star, he grabs it and then crushes it in his hand like it's a Fabergé egg. So it survived crashing in a TIE fighter, and it survived crashing in a Death Star that went nuclear, but apparently
and being on fire.
That's correct.
Twice
and burning
from the first time that she cut that TIE fighter in half.
Exactly, but you can crush it in your hand. It's lit it on fire. That's right. Yes. So anyways, she flies off to Testicle, and then Lando is like, I'll go get help, which is a very weird turn for the movie because I feel like that would have been a really interesting thing to see. At the, there's the portion in The Last Jedi where they're like, we set out the call for help and nobody answered. That means, based on this movie, that Wedge got that message and said, yo, fuck those guys. Right? That fucking Sabine and fucking Hera and all of these people who've been fighting the Empire for all of these years said, yo, fuck you guys. But Lando had that conversation.
I was so genuinely interested, like after Last Jedi, because the idea of they sent out the message for help and no one came, because they're too afraid of the First Order and all of these reasons. Because again, one of the things they kept saying in The Last Jedi is we are the spark that sets off the fire. So I was super interested to see how that was going to go. What was that spark going to be? And again, had they killed Leia in the crawl, they could have almost had Leia being like that forbidden message that everyone passes around. Because again, at the end of Last Jedi, the story of Luke Skywalker and his epic whatever fight with Kylo Ren was inspiring these children. So there could have been this spark and it would have actually made sense. But instead, what we found out about the galaxy is that when Leia asks for help, no one gives a fuck, including Wedge, as you said. And all of these other people that have spent their entire lives fighting the Empire. But as soon as a man does it, they're just like, shit, yeah, let's send like 10,000 shit. How many do we need
to make this CGI cool? Okay, it was a black man. Lando is charismatic. That's what we've learned about this thing. But we're going to take a quick break because Nathan really has to pee. So I'm just going to pause this really quick, and we're going to come back and dive right into this shit, okay? Because we're at the end of the movie, which is psychotic. So this is going to be very interesting. While Nathan is pissing, I would just like to point out that Nathan and I disagree on The Last Jedi significantly. And I think that we avoided this conversation for a really long time because I fucking hate that movie. But it's like, I expected us to not agree on this one, but the fact that we did made the conversation very, very entertaining. But anyways, that's a quick disclaimer. This has been a really long episode. It's probably going to go for about another half hour. So if you don't want to hear about the Rise of Skywalker anymore, hey, have a great one, everybody. And then we'll deal with it from there. But, thanks for sticking around. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. And we're back. Okay, so we're going to push forward here because this has been a long episode. I did not expect us to go this long on The Rise of Skywalker, but I feel like we have to get to the end of this movie because I feel like it's very, very important. And the people who are sticking around to listen to this want to hear us talk about the end of this movie. So she has two 90-degree turns in the span of two scenes, and she flies off to Testicle. And when she gets there, she uses the Sith Wayfinder to fly through the atmosphere, which we find out is full of, EMP fields and wormholes and distortion. And like you can't fly through it because it's crazy. It's like the Maw from Solo. You need a special tool to get through it. She flies down to the planet and does that Luke thing of just walking directly up to the bad guy. Now, this is when the movie does start to sort of pick up a little bit for me, in the sense that we get a lot more Ian McDiarmid. I think that he's psycho. The weird horror vibe that they decided to play on him was awesome. I absolutely adored the scene where we see the like gigantic reticulating arm like carrying his corpse around. I loved the look of that scene. I thought that was super, super cool. But like it's like setting up something big that doesn't go anywhere. And I feel like you spend so much time devoting your movie to this sequence as if it is the climax of the movie, when in fact it has almost nothing to do with the climax of the movie. All of her interactions with Palpatine are weird, and then this is when we learn about Palpatine's plan. And like I'm just gonna break down Palpatine's plan as I understood it in this movie. It's fucking crazy. So you feel free to jump in here. So okay. Palpatine, who had perfected cloning, learns that he figures out that Darth Vader is going to betray him to save his son Luke. So he sends a clone of himself to the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi to draw Luke in and to essentially let this whole thing play out.
But at no point, see, where the fuck did you get that from? Because he never mentioned that at all.
No, but they sort of hint at the fact that like when he died on the Death Star, he did die. and that like he's been using this whole body jumping clone thing, the whole like, you know, the Sith have many powers that some would
But again,
consider unnatural.
that doesn't but even then that doesn't even fucking work, because if he sent a clone to the Death Star and it was the clone that was killed, why is he so unbelievably fucked up that he needs to be using
because he's old and nasty, you know, like we assume Palpatine started when
listen, when you get old, we all know the first thing to go is your fingers just fall off.
That's
right?
right. They just fall off. Right. But again, I would expect a lot more damage from falling down a mine shaft and exploding. Like there's a giant explosion of energy. The Death Star then explodes. And it's not like Rey getting away in The Last Jedi where they're like, where's Rey? She took off on a shuttle. It's like, no, he fell down a giant mine shaft and then the Death Star blew up like 10 minutes. Like there's no time for this to work out. So I assume he was a clone, and that all he says like everything has been part of his plan. This has all been part of his master stroke, you know. So he does this, allows the Empire to fall. Then in the unknown regions where he's out here on Testicle, he creates the First Order. We know that the First Order came out of the unknown regions with Snoke at their back, and that's how they do. And the First Order is laughably more powerful than the Republic. Like laughably more powerful. Their army is like 100 times bigger. They have 100 times more ships.
But again, are they? Because this is one of the big problems over the entire trilogy. Like when you look at the scroll in
the Resistance has 3 ships.
No, but like when you look at the scroll of A New Hope, they talk about like, oh, the evil empire, the rebellion is trying to do this and that, and they really set the stage to describe the universe, and then that's all you see. The Empire has a Death Star, they have all of this. In Force Awakens, they're like, the sinister First Order has risen, and the New Republic doesn't do anything, but hey, guess what? The rebellion...
Resistance.
The Resistance is supported by the New Republic. So you're like, wait, so is the government of the land supporting terrorists to attack someone? Like,
yes.
At no point is the First Order ever truly defined as a threat. And then, yes, Starkiller Base comes out. They blow up a bunch of worlds, including the capital of the New Republic.
The Hosnian system.
Which is inexplicably not Coruscant.
Correct.
And mostly so that JJ could destroy it.
Correct.
But again, at no point is the First Order ever defined. Like, we never know their military strength. We never know, are they a replacement for the Empire?
But at the beginning of The Last Jedi...
Are they 3 guys and a Star Destroyer? Like, fuck, man.
At the beginning of The Last Jedi, they say that they basically control the galaxy now. Like, the New Republic has fallen. It's completely gone. They control the galaxy now. You know, like Starkiller Base is a massive, massive undertaking. They have an enormous amount of ships. They have an enormous amount of people. And at no point do we see any response from the Republic. Any response from the Republic.
Yeah.
And this is why I say they are laughably more powerful than anything else in the galaxy. And at the beginning of the second movie, they already control the galaxy, regardless of the fact that we've already destroyed Starkiller Base and hit them with a big hit.
Oh, no. I know, but again, like, that's one of the big overarching, like, of the whole trilogy things.
This is just a bad trilogy. This whole trilogy is bad. Yeah. I think we agree this is a terrible trilogy because the movies almost have no connection to each other.
Yeah,
like they feel like independent films with very, very little continuity.
Yeah, all of the independent films are all better than like any of the prequels, but as like a cohesive story, good
Palpatine's plan.
Good God. Okay, go back.
I'm basing this on insinuation of what it is, because if it's not this, then it's Palpatine fell in a hole, escaped, and hit on a planet. That said, on this planet, he apparently, during the span of 30 years, builds one First Order, which is like a new empire, and sends them out to take over the galaxy with a cloned Snoke, which is like, hey, if you can clone 10-foot-tall Force monsters, just do that, I feel like. But anyways... He's apparently puppeting this clone from like a huge distance away to control people. It's so powerful that he can literally corrupt the mind of young Jedi and turn them over to his side, which is like, I feel like that would force you to death, given what we've seen forces people to death in this fucking trilogy, right? The fact that you're actually doing these things like using force powers from across the galaxy, but apparently Palpatine is, again, laughably more powerful than anybody else. So what he does is he's like, right, I'm going to let the Empire fall. I'm going to hide on this planet. I'm going to create the First Order. I'm going to send them out to take over the galaxy. Once they succeed, I am going to create another First Order called the Final Order. Just hats on hats. Like, let's just keep fucking going.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to send the Final Order out, unbeknownst to the First Order, to say, yo, we're the new Empire, and you've got 18 days before we show up to go do this shit. And during this whole process, I am going to send a Jedi Hunter with a Sith dagger that points to a Sith Wayfinder that he will not use to find my son and his wife and their daughter and kill them and bring the daughter back to me. And so instead of bringing the daughter back to him, he drops the daughter off on Jakku so that he can go back to Burning Man for some reason. At which point he crashes his Sith Mercedes, loses the dagger, and at no point did he call Palpatine to be like, yo, I got your daughter, I dropped her off on Jakku, I'll bring her around, right? No, he does this all in his own time for no reason, and that's it. And then what ends up happening is Palpatine then tells Kylo Ren, go kill Rey, knowing that he doesn't actually want to kill Rey, and knowing that Kylo Ren, the person who he corrupted by proxy through a clone that he created and is controlling on the other side of the galaxy, would be corrupted to the dark side, but also be conflicted enough to not follow his orders so that he wouldn't kill the person that he told him to kill. Then Rey beats him in a fight, which he also knew would happen, so that Rey would then come to Testicle after finding the Sith Wayfinder, knowing that it's not the first MacGuffin, but it's actually the fourth MacGuffin of this movie, so that she can show up at Testicle and fucking fight him, and that he can be like, your friends are going to die, in the exact same conversation that he had with Luke, where he's like, I'm going to put my soul into you, which is strange because you can clone 10-foot-tall force monsters. I feel like you don't need Rey. So then what happens is Kylo Ren shows up in a TIE fighter, which he got out of fucking who knows. If he got it off that Death Star, that was back when TIE fighters didn't have hyperdrives. So how the fuck did he get across the galaxy? Whatever. He shows up. He takes off his uniform and he just looks like Kurt Cobain. And then he fights the Knights of Ren, who are mutes, who don't have weapons. They look like homeless Kylo Ren cosplayers. It's the weirdest fucking situation.
Oh my God. And the worst part is like, I remember after Force Awakens, you and I were both just like, fuck me, give me the Knights of Ren. They sound so badass. Oh, yeah. He's the head of the Knights of Ren. I can't wait. And then we get them and I'm like, I am so disappointed. I wish they'd never been in this movie, JJ.
Oh, it's genuinely upsetting the way that they do it. So then Rey shows up and he's like, you're going to kill me and I'm going to go into your body. And Rey feels that Kylo Ren is there, and then we do the worst version of Force Time, where we can just teleport items across the map, which I like to refer to as MacGuffin number 6. So what ends up happening here is he hands him the lightsaber. There's kind of a cool scene where he does the Han Solo shrug with it, which I quite like. It was kind of like an Indiana Jones Han Solo thing. I thought that was kind of fun. But then he just beats them up and comes running in, and then the Emperor, goes, you're a diadem, which is like, are you fucking shitting me? Like that's straight out of Harry Potter. This is so fucking stupid. But then he literally is a Dementor and he sucks their souls out. And you're like, oh, fuck, it is Harry Potter. Holy shit. And then he just...
And then he's all better. And
right.
Then he's like, I guess my entire plan that I've been working on for
30 years. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
So then he eats Kylo Ren into a hole. And oh my God, everybody, Kylo Ren's dead. Catfish number 3. Not the last catfish, but death catfish number 3. At which point, the Resistance, who now suddenly has a whole bunch more ships and a whole bunch more fighters.
10,000 ships.
No, we're not even there yet. They have a whole bunch more ships, come flying in, and they're like, we can't get through this atmosphere. Oh, hey, look, Rey left us a trail. Okay, let's fly in. So they fly in. And then the Emperor has 700 plus Star Destroyers, which asks the question, how the fuck did you staff? I think somebody did the math and it's like 3 million troops and officers to actually pilot those Star Destroyers, the number of Star Destroyers they had. Where the fuck did these people come from in the unknown regions?
Well, all of the so here's the thing. Apparently, because there were so many plot holes that the entire like fucking Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary tried to fill them in.
Yes, I did hear about this.
Apparently, all of those hooded figures, which I assumed when I viewed the film twice, I assumed they were Sith Force ghosts.
I assumed they were ghosts as well, yes.
No, they are legitimate people that have just been chilling out on the, I guess, Agra world of Exegol, having babies because it's all of their children that are crewing all of those Star Destroyers. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, that's fucking horrible. So anyways.
It is even dumber than the idea of they are ghosts.
Yes, it is dumber than the idea that they are ghosts. Hold on, my kids are coming down. I'm going to pause so I can put them to bed.
Sure.
And we're back. So, the Emperor's plan goes to shit. We're talking about the battle. 700 Star Destroyers come out of the ice. Where the fuck did you build them? Is there like a shipyard under the ice? Like
okay, again.
Okay, cool.
Fucking visual Star Wars dictionary, because there were so many plot holes in this piece of shit movie. Apparently, there is a shipyard underneath the ground, which makes no sense because how would you fly the ships out? And the way they got the materials is that all of the legitimate shipbuilding companies were actually beholden to the Sith and were just sending resources and shit their way.
Sending resources to the hidden planet of Exegol
no
in the unknown
auditors
regions.
In a galaxy far, far away. Auditors just don't exist, so no one noticed the fact that there was literally like millions of tons of resources missing.
That's right. So they found a bunch of horse riding traitor stormtroopers on Endor who also had a feeling, which is weird because they sort of hint that like Finn is force sensitive and that like his force sensitivity is why he broke off from like the mind control, the mind washing, brainwashing of like the child soldiers thing, until you find a whole group of them on a planet. And they're just like, yeah, we all just had this feeling. And you're like, are they all force sensitive? Or is like, it's just a thing that like people are inherently good. But anyways, they decide that the best way to stop the Star Destroyers from getting into orbit through the unpassable atmosphere is to ride horses along the side of the Death Star, drop a bunch of grenades into a toilet, like a toilet hatch that then chain explodes up onto a comms tower that they apparently use to navigate their way out. But they show us that you don't actually need a comms tower so long as there's a trail. And we've seen ships leaving, coming and going through this atmosphere constantly. So,
oh yeah, it was such a stupid bullshit moment. Like, and not even talking about like the horses, but just to explain why we have the largest fleet the galaxy has ever seen and how we're totes gonna just destroy them because every one of them has a just blow up the one, hit them in the dick and they blow up.
That's right. Well, and what's so stupid about this is that we meet these ex-stormtroopers living on Endor, and then they go, hey, we're going to go fight the Empire. Do you want to come with? And the woman, I don't remember what her name was, Zara or Xena or whatever the fuck it was, she goes, there had to have been a scene cut out of this movie. She goes, oh yeah, we'll come fight. We would like to bring all of our horses. Not knowing that they would need horses to ride on a Star Destroyer, but they literally said, we would like to bring all of our horses with us. It's important. So,
and then the Resistance was just like, sure, we got ships to spare.
Yeah, we can make it happen. So this ridiculous fight scene on the side where they send a total of like 5 stormtroopers to stop them can immediately be stopped by just this Star Destroyer like rolling and like them just falling off the side of the Star Destroyer. But hey, fuck whatever. So then they drop the grenades down the toilet and the comms tower explodes. And immediately you see Poe like buzz the tower like it's fucking Top Gun. And I just turned to, Buddy sitting next to me and I was like, why didn't Poe just shoot the tower? Like, what was the point of this entire sequence? So anyways, they do this thing. They destroy the comm tower. The fucking Star Destroyers have no place to go. But again, this is 700 Star Destroyers versus like 30 fighters. So they are just massacring these people. And Poe, and this is where I talk about like the weird groupthink happening in fucking Disney. where Poe is like, we're fucking pieces of shit, everybody. We fucking suck. I'm the worst. We're all gonna die here. And then Lando shows up and he goes, on your left. And fucking, you're just like, wait. And then 30,000 ships hyperspace into the atmosphere. In The Force Awakens, we see that hyperspacing into the atmosphere is incredibly dangerous. You end up crashing your ship into the planet. And this atmosphere is supposedly so fucking thick that you can't get communications in and out of it. But apparently these ships just hyperspace through the atmosphere and it's no big deal. Now, I would like to point something out. If I have 700 tanks and you have 30,000 Toyota Corollas, I win that fight. I don't care if that many people show up. And two of the stupidest lines I've ever heard in Star Wars come out of this fucking movie. And one of them is, we got to take out those guns, everybody. For every one of these we kill, it's a planet we save. That is awful. And then the second absolutely horrible line that comes out of this movie is when, what was it? The Toyota Corollas come light speeding in, and then Admiral Pride goes, we didn't know they had a fleet in this system. And then the other guy goes, it's not a fleet, sir. It's just people. And I was like, I can't fucking do this. I can't do this. This is so bad.
Which again, on the Last Jedi moment, because again, like the fact that his magical MacGuffin to finally defeat Palpatine and defeat the Empire for good was, fuck you, Rian Johnson.
Yes.
Everybody would come because we all stand up to fascism.
That's right.
Just look at history. Nobody has ever allowed fascists to come to power. And you're like, well, God damn it, JJ, will you shut the fuck up?
The stupidity of this entire sequence is like, you have enough materials and people to create 700 Star Destroyers with 700 Death Star lasers. And I'm using the number 700 because somebody apparently counted. But 700 Death Star lasers, but you could only build one communications tower to get you out of the atmosphere. I feel like that would be a standard on most of these things, right? Like, at no point did you think to yourself, maybe we would send out one at a time?
There was fucking nothing special, right?
No.
Because initially that guidance tower was on the planet, which is weird. To just be like, this is down, guys. And they're like, I guess we have to move away from this. But then when they're like, oh, they're targeting that, and fucking, Diet Hux is just like, well, then I'm going to make our ship the thing so they can't destroy it. That implies that every single Star Destroyer has one of those towers. And if every Star Destroyer is capable of guiding every other Star Destroyer, why do they need a lead Star Destroyer?
All right, let's wrap up this
mess. The moment you think, the plot falls apart.
We're at 3 hours. We're going to go a little while. This might actually be a separate audio file. We don't know yet. So what ends up happening now at this point is that the we cut back down to Palpatine and Rey. Rey doesn't want to do it, but she hears the voices of all the Jedi. And that was actually a cool scene. I did quite like.
Listen, it was a cool scene, but it still makes no fucking sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and it's frustrating.
Apparently, the only Sith alive is all the Sith.
Well,
like, what is this? Like, I feel like J.J. Abrams read Dune and was just like, "Fuck yes!"
This is the Disney group thing. This is the Disney group thing. The Emperor goes, "I am inevitable," and snaps his fingers, and then Rey goes, "I am Iron Man," and uses 2 lightsabers. Because one lightsaber can't stop force lightning, but two lightsabers
can reflect it back. And at no point was the Emperor just like, "I'm gonna stop doing this."
Well, hey, you know what? But that tracks because he didn't do it last time.
Fuck.
So why would he?
It's true.
This is his fatal flaw.
As someone picked him up, he kept lightninging at the ceiling, and then someone took a step and threw him into an abyss, and he kept lightninging.
This is it. Whole time. When Luke goes, "Your overconfidence is your weakness," he was incorrect. His weakness is that once you turn that force lightning off, it's like trying to stop yourself from peeing. where you have to like pinch it off, it kind of hurts. So you just don't do it. You have to just let it run its course until your bladder's empty. And then like actually having the giant blue sky beam be a person, I really got a kick out of that, where he's like, fucking sky lightning. And all the ships are like, oh no, sky lightning. Our ships are falling out of the atmosphere. And then like he stops and all the ships are like, shit, turn it back on. They restart their computers. They all fly back into the atmosphere.
Oh, I know. Like, it was such a dumb thing because, like, listen, when he was just like, you think I'd abandon you? And like he shoots into the sky, you're just like, holy fuck, this is cool. And, you know, it's basically like this enormous ion cannon, which doesn't make sense.
Nope.
But none of this movie does. So go with it.
Yep.
And all of these ships, they like all their computers and their electronics all shut off, and they all start plummeting.
That's right.
And they all start panicking.
That's right.
And then Rey distracts him, so he stops lightninging, and then they all are saved. Like not a single ship is lost to this entire
not
like
a single. They
move.
all turn back on and fly back into the atmosphere, and the electricity coursing through these metal ships has no effect on the pilots.
Oh my god!
So,
anyways. Don't think about this movie, and it's enjoyable enough.
Kamehameha, the Force lightning back into his face. The Emperor dies, and somehow the Toyota Corollas beat the tanks, and like Rey forces too hard by reflecting the Force lightning, which was weird because it was her lightsabers, but apparently it's enough to kill her, and she dies. And you're like, okay. Similar to The Last Jedi, here's a moment where this movie's going to have some teeth and there's going to actually be consequences to what happens in this movie. Like when Finn was going to crash into the Death Star, the battering ram laser from the fucking Last Jedi, and then Rose fucking like sideswipes him.
Nope.
You know, it's like, oh, this movie's going to have some teeth. Holy shit. Nope. He somehow knows how to force heal now because you had it done to him. And then he force heals her. And at this point, you're like, they could just be snowballing Force life back and forth for a while now. But instead, JJ's like, no, he's dead. Look, he disappeared. Bye.
Yeah, it is narratively convenient for him to disappear
and
you stop asking me questions about why she doesn't heal him back.
Here's what I think happened. He brought her back to life, and they had the most awkward, loveless, chemistry-less kiss I've seen on screen in the longest time.
Oh my god,
that was so bad he literally died and disappeared.
Oh.
You ever kiss somebody and that kiss is like bad? Like it's just one of those and you go, oh my god, this person does not know how to kiss, and you just want to like melt into the wall. That's what Kylo Ren did. The kiss was so bad, he was like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Uh-huh.
So anyways,
this is the only thing that makes sense.
That's right. And then, again, you run into the problem of the First Order is laughably more powerful than the Resistance, and the New Republic has been destroyed, and they essentially control the galaxy at this point. So, like, what have you done? All you've done is stop the Final Order and killed the Emperor. You still have to deal with the First Order. But then, on the other side of the galaxy, Poe gets a message through the impenetrable atmosphere at the speed of light where he's like, I'm getting a message, everybody. We're kicking ass across the galaxy. And then they just cut to like Star Destroyers falling out of the fucking sky. And then there's literally one falling out of the sky over Endor. And I was like, how did that happen?
And all the Ewoks are cheering.
Yeah, like were the Ewoks like throwing spears into the atmosphere, like taking it down?
But like the worst part is like at this point you're just like, this is the Endor we wanted, and it's still disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, oh, we got to go to Endor. You're like, holy shit! And then they go to like some ocean.
That's right.
With no trees, and we're like, oh,
it's bananas.
I guess the second Death Star coming out, like everyone talked about how it would be ecologically like a disaster. I guess that happened. They're like, oh no, the forest moon is still totally a thing, and I'm still disappointed. Like, how were you able to disappoint me in both visits to Endor, JJ?
So everybody's happy. They fly back to the planet that they were on at the very beginning of the movie to celebrate, which I felt was kind of weird. Like, of all the places to go, you went back to the planet like you abandoned. I felt like it would make more sense for them to go to Coruscant or to go to some place where like they could actually say like, hey, we won. But instead they go back to the very, very first planet. And Rose gets done dirty again. because we see Finn like looking around like, oh man, where is everybody? Hey, look, there's Rose. And Rose is like hugging Chewbacca. She's like, yep, that's my buddy. And then he turns and he looks and he finds Poe. And like, you feel like there should be a moment where him and Poe are like, we gonna fuck now? Like, we really gonna do this? But instead, Poe looks over at Zarya or Zaza or whatever the fuck her name is, Kerry Russell's character, and he's like, yo, we trying to fuck? She's like, no. And he's like, okay, I guess so. And then Rey shows up and they just have a great big group hug that feels so fucking awkward. We don't know what Poe was trying to tell Rey throughout the movie, and that we brought up
even though he's like, Rey, there's something I wanted to tell you.
No.
Which again, if you think these are your last words, you're not going to be like,
I'm force
my
sensitive.
last words are that I wanted to tell you something.
Mm-hmm. So they have this horrific ending. The first gay kiss in Star Wars is the weirdest situation because it's a gay kiss between Big Nose Girl and other chick.
Oh yeah, it is a gay kiss between two completely bit parts where no one knows the characters' names.
Big Nose Girl and other chick
in the fucking background. Like it is it's not like the main focus of the frame. It's not the mid focus of the frame. It's like in the back. If you squint and you were looking for it, you would notice there was a gay kiss.
It is in a easily editable out scene for Chinese audiences. So, and again, they hug it out at the end, and then we cut away to Rey on Tatooine of all places, at the fucking Lars farm where Luke grew up, and she's like, yo, this is the farm. This is where I'm going to hang out. You know, this is this big moisture farm on the outside of the city, which is like nobody's squatted in this place. Nobody's taken up residence.
Right. Like this is literally a fucking farm.
It's a
like this is an entire moisture farm.
Yes, that's correct.
That has all of the equipment, because even if we look at A New Hope, when fucking Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru were killed, they were killed at the home, which means all of the farming, the moisture farming equipment is 100% intact. And for 40 years, everyone's just like, there are ghosts there.
Well, here's the thing, right? On Tatooine, 2 dead bodies and 1 burnt dome, that's not even a reno, right? Like, that's just, you move right the fuck in, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, she shows up there and then buries the 2 lightsabers in the sand using the Force, which tells us that she absolutely could have got them out of the quicksand. And she fucking stands up and
keeping in mind, one of those lightsabers was literally ripped in half during The Last Jedi, but fuck you, Ryan.
Well, I can only imagine Anakin's ghost and the terror that he was feeling when they buried his lightsaber in the sand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He absolutely fucking hated it.
Yeah, and then an old woman shows up, and she's like, who are you? And she goes, I'm Rey. And she goes, but what's your last fucking name? Which is, I've never in all of my life had an interaction where a person said, hey, who are you? And I said, Lang. And they go, Lang who?
No, but the worst part is like they fucking, because JJ realized that this is such a stupid fucking conversation, he had an exact replica of this conversation earlier in the film at Burning Man.
Yes. When
the fucking girl that gives the fucking MacGuffin flower,
the necklace,
is just like, what's your last name? And she's like, I don't have one. And so like, even at the end, my first thought, and I even turned to my kid, and she still says this, and it's just like, what's your last name? Palpadopoulos. Where it's just like, and then it's just like Skywalker,
which is the worst choice.
Oh, it is absolutely the worst choice.
It's the worst.
And again,
choice.
When you look, so what pisses me off so much is by the end of this, like they did Kylo dirty, and when they say Rise of Skywalker, you are expecting a redemption arc the same way that you are expecting Anakin's fall into Vader during Revenge of the Sith, right? This is what we're looking at, especially when you look at both Force Awakens and Last Jedi. They are Kylo Ren's stories. This is the story of Kylo Ren. Force Awakens is the story of Kylo Ren rejecting the light, choosing the dark, and killing his father. The Last Jedi is Kylo Ren rejecting the past and embracing his own destiny by killing Snoke. And then the Rise of Skywalker is some bitch who decided to call herself Skywalker, I guess.
And not even legally
like,
changing her name
fuck,
or like
man?
getting married or like having a legitimate reason to do it. She just decides that she is a Skywalker, which is
because she spent 72 hours with
correct.
Luke and like a good couple months with Leia.
That's
so
right.
Therefore, her entire
Leia
identity, yes, Leia Organa, her entire identity should now be 72 hours of Skywalker. I mean, listen, what happens on on Jedi planet stays on Jedi planet. Like maybe that's the thing that we don't know is like, fuck me. It was just incredible.
Here's the thing, right? Like, I feel like you had a couple of different options, right? You could have said, what's your last name? And she said Solo. Han Solo was like a father to her, and eventually she had a relationship with Ben Solo, and they're a diadem, so it's like, whatever the fuck that means, you could have at least gone the way of saying, like, it's Rey Solo. She has more connection to those characters in ways that are meaningful, that would make it like, that's kind of dumb, but at least I kind of understand the idea that you would say, I am carrying on this legacy. Or even just saying, my last name's Palpatine, and the lady going like, and she's like, no, I killed Palpatine, and now I'm trying to make it something good. I want it to be associated with something better, so I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it something new, and I'm going to own up to my lineage, and like, this is what is going to happen. Because again, you tell some old lady in the desert your name's Palpatine, who the fuck cares? Nobody's going to believe this old fucking lady in the desert. Like, what's the whole fucking point? But you tell her that your last name is Skywalker, and she's like the guy who killed all the Jawas on this planet? Like Luke
or like
Skywalker?
The guy who used to live here?
Yeah, for real. Like, it is so awkward and strange that it is very, 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 very bad to end the movie that way, because when it ends, you go, huh. And then you see Leia's Force Ghost and you see Luke's Force Ghost. And then it just leaves us with all of these questions at the end of the movie that don't make any sense. Who created the Force Dagger? Why? If they created the Sith Dagger to find the fucking Sith Wayfinder on the Death Star, why don't you just get it off the Death Star?
But
Why'd
none
you
of
give
this,
it?
No, listen, fuck that. None of this addresses the elephant in the room is who the fuck did Palpatine bang? Who was just like, look at that wrinkly Force Ghost.
Dude, don't ever... And I'm sorry, I feel like this is storytelling 101, and we talked about this when we were talking about Picard, like the whole like daughter you never knew about is like a bad story hook. We don't like that kind of stuff. So this...
And so Rise of Skywalker is not only, it's the daughter you didn't know about, it's the granddaughter you didn't know about.
Grandson.
Not only did you not know you had a son,
yeah,
that son had a daughter that you didn't know about.
That's right. And based on the ages that we have here, it was somebody he banged during the prequels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is the stupid part of it, is it's like, you can't create this character where the crux is a character that you've never talked about or introduced, who has no part of the movie, but is apparently this tying force between these two characters that is supposed to have some sort of impact. It doesn't work. It's not interesting. Don't do that kind of shit. And again, we're left with all these ridiculous questions that don't work whatsoever. And the plans and the stories and everything is just nonsensical, because by the time it's all said and done, that ending would have had a little bit more punch if like Finn was there with her. And when she like takes out her lightsaber, he takes his lightsaber out, and you're like, oh, he is force sensitive. Sure. Okay, she's going to train him. Maybe we're going to build the new Jedi. But instead, she does what Luke did, and she's just going to go die in the desert somewhere. And, like, why?
No, it's why? Again, the whole idea at the end of The Last Jedi, where it's just like, hey, she was a nobody, and fucking, Canto Bite kid can use the Force because this is the Force balancing itself.
Yes.
Remember, Anakin is Force Jesus. He has no father.
That's right.
He was literally created by the Force to be the Messiah, the
virgin.
savior, to bring balance to the Force. So we know in Star Wars canon that the Force will create balance. So in a universe, in a galaxy where there is only, I guess, Palpatine, Snoke, and Kylo breaking the rule of two, because fuck it, why not? But in a universe...
Snoke was a clone controlled by the Emperor, though.
Gah. And there was a whole jar of him,
Yeah,
which is
there's a
why
couple.
now my kid refers to Pickles as
Yes,
Snokes.
that's right.
Like she legitimately, like we
love
even
it.
go shopping. She's like, "Can we get some Snokes?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? Oh, right.
Yeah, the garlic Snokes, not the sweet ones. Those are disgusting.
Yeah." Fuck.
But yeah,
But
like
like it just like like the whole idea, and we saw that in the extended universe before Disney canned it. Like, remember the New Jedi Order
That's
with
right.
Luke Skywalker?
That's right.
There were a number of his students that were literally like, out of nowhere, you're now force sensitive.
That's
because this was the Force creating balance. And so there was this idea, and then JJ's like, no, they're all kids. She's a Palpatine. And we're like, this doesn't make sense.
Well, and on top of that, what's very frustrating about this story is that as a trilogy, this accomplishes nothing for Star Wars. You know, like there's nothing moving forward. There's nothing changing. There's nothing that makes you go like, oh, the galaxy's more interesting now, or the galaxy's more scary now, or it's more hopeful. All we end up with is a 3-movie series that takes all of the old characters that we know and love, either ruins them or kills them, and basically tells you that the new heroes that you should like are these sort of like weird, passionless characters that change from movie to movie. And I think, you know, when it comes down to like how you structure a good Star Wars film, where it's like, you know, Star Wars is great because you got Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie, R2-D2 and C-3PO running around the galaxy together, being together, doing things together. Mm-hmm. In these movies, they are split up all the time. Whole sections of the movie are just them split up doing their own thing, to the point where we're at the end of the movie and they're all hugging each other and crying. You're like, I feel like they've barely spent any time together. Like, who are these people? Like, this is very strange.
Like, in the new trilogy, they literally had none of those things. And I think you said it best when you said, like, this is basically just 3 disparate movies. They're all trying to be like huge summer blockbusters. And this is what I mean when I say that Disney turned Star Wars into Die Hard. Because you can watch Die Hard 5 having never watched another Die Hard movie and still know what the fuck is going on. Right. It doesn't matter what happened beforehand. None of it matters.
We don't need to know about Nakatomi Plaza. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Because like even when going back to like fucking cavalry charge on the side of the Star Destroyer.
God damn it.
Love it or hate it. The end of Last Jedi, when Rose rammed him and said, we never win by destroying what we hate. We win by saving what we love. Okay? Finn, no, again, love it or hate it. I don't give a shit. Like moving on. Finn then decides, I'm going to sacrifice myself to make sure that I super duper kill this Death Star because I never thought that they could just turn it off and then on again.
That's right.
So my entire plan of cavalry charge a tower was foiled by they could unplug it and plug it back in. So I am now going to sacrifice myself. And everyone, including Rose, who was on there, was just like, you go, Finn. I understand you have to die now.
Yes.
And I'm like, will you stop shitting on Last Jedi?
Well, and again,
please?
Can we talk about the fact that these new Star Destroyers were designed with massive turrets that have the command ship bridge of their own ship in their firing arc? Somebody designed this ship so that the turrets can literally point at their own bridge. Like, that is psychotic. Like, there are so many ridiculous sequences that happen in this movie. And again, like, I want to come back to the thing that bothers me a lot about this movie is the idea that people can force themselves to death, because I feel like that ruins the Force. Because it's like, you know, I look at movies like The Empire Strikes Back and I go like, yeah, you remember when Luke was on Dagobah talking to Yoda, and Yoda's like, yo, you should like totally lift your X-Wing out of the water. And then you realize that the reason
I could die if I did, Yoda.
He's like, dude, I'm going to get you to do it, because if I do that shit at my age, I'm going to blow an O-ring and I'm going to fucking die. Like, I can't be straining like that.
Listen, you keep saying that, but let's not forget that in Return of the Jedi, Luke annoyed Yoda to death.
Yes, he did.
Yoda just decided, fuck this. This kid is annoying. I'm going to die now so that I don't have to answer his question. That's right. So
It like
choosing when to die in Star Wars is canon.
I mean, I guess so. I mean,
Padme lost the will to live. It was just like, my kids are born.
Did I ever tell you about my theory?
Motherfuckers.
My dark theory for Padme's death?
Oh, what's that?
I came up with a dark theory for Padme's death, and basically what it is that I can't do it. We were going too long. I'll do it on another one. I'll do my theory for Padme's death on another episode. The last thing that I want to talk about is Leia's arc in this story, where they go to Octo and Luke's like, "I got a present for you." Yeah, it's Leia's lightsaber. I've had it here this whole time. Fuck whatever. And then they do that flashback to like young Luke and Leia training, where Leia beats his ass, and then after she beats his ass, she suddenly has a Force vision that her son would someday die. And it's like, you don't explain that. You just say, yes, she was trained, and yes, that's why she was able to fly like Mary fucking Poppins. But then she goes like, and now I quit being a Jedi. Which was very, very strange to me, because if you have this vision that your child is going to die, and you decide, well, I'm just going to quit being a Jedi and not deal with it at all, I could understand it if you stayed out of the fucking galaxy's business and you went off someplace and just raised your kid away from everybody else. But when he got old enough, she was like, yeah, fucking train him, and sends him off to Luke to fucking go do exactly what she knows is going to kill him. And it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Because even if you quit being a Jedi, why would you leave your lightsaber behind? To what fucking end would you leave your lightsaber behind? And then again, to do all of this shit, it's like you had this vision and then did the exact thing you weren't supposed to do with this fucking vision. Like, I feel like J.J. Abrams spent the last 2 years reading complaints and watching videos of people complaining about The Last Jedi and about Star Wars in general, and deciding that what he's going to do...
Chewie a medal, because some neckbeards were just like, after New Hope, why didn't Chewie get a medal?
Well, that was like a meme. That was like a joke.
It was literally a joke, but what does he do? He gives Chewie a medal to shut these fuckers up.
Well, and again, it was very much this weird fan service moment where people were complaining about Leia not... How does Leia know how to do this? And he's like, here's a scene where Leia's being trained. Fucking eat it, you nerds. Oh, Chewie didn't get a medal. Well, here's a scene where we give Chewie the medal, even though Maz Kanata, how the fuck would she know to give Chewie the fucking medal?
Also, can we ever hear the story of how Maz got Anakin Skywalker, which literally fell into the abyss? That's a good story for another time.
Sure
Go fuck yourself.
Maz Kanata's in the background to hand somebody a medal and look sad from scene to scene.
To me, it's just like, again... Disney was so scared about having the racists and the white supremacists hate on this movie that they just catered to all of them.
Well, they catered to everybody, I felt like, except for Rian Johnson and anybody who liked The Last Jedi. Because it was very much, it was just one fan service moment after another that was just, like, they just pop out of nowhere for no reason. Like, if you're going to put Wedge in the movie, give him more than 2.7 seconds of screen time. I could barely tell that was Wedge because it happened so fast. I was like,
I had no idea. It was only after the fact where they're like, Wedge was there. I'm like, fucking really?
Yeah.
Because, again, like you said earlier, this entire movie was on like fucking meth.
Oh,
like everything was just like rapid fire, like fucking go, 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 go. This was less of a movie and more of a fucking Clockwork Orange. Your eyelids are taped open so you don't miss anything, like a propaganda pit, because the pacing of this movie was
breakneck.
Fucking, it was so unfollowed. Like I said, not only did I forget about a planet, I've seen the movie twice. And I forgot about a planet. Like, this is how much happens and how much is crammed in. And it's why you don't get emotional impact.
No.
Like, not even talking about the catfishing emotional impact. It's just like, ba. Because even when Kylo dies inexplicably for no good reason, it doesn't explain how he didn't die earlier when Palpatine threw him into an abyss the way Vader threw Palpatine in. Which implies...
Well, how did he disappear?
That it wasn't... but it implies that it wasn't a Palpatine clone, because Palpatine knew. So,
well, I mean, again,
but like, listen.
If there's no clone story, it's just even dumber.
There were 3 people in that throne room.
Oh, I know.
There was dead Palpatine, which you're telling me was a clone. There is Vader, who Force ghosted immediately, and there was Luke. So unless Luke was having a fucking Force time with Palps and was just like, it's cool that you're alive. There is no way that Palpatine would know that Anakin threw him and therefore to do that. Like, it's just such fucking fan wank to the audience.
Well, even the kiss.
And there's no explanation. Oh, the kiss
is
so
just
awkward
playing to all the fucking Reylo fangirls who've been wanting this weird ass fucking connection. I remember I lost $20 on that kiss, I would like to point out. And what ended up happening is, like, when that scene happens, you can feel like everybody in the theater groaning, but there were 3 girls sitting in front of me who were just like, yeah, like, and then he dies. And it, like, there's no purpose for that in the movie because they hate each other for the entirety of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Their relationship has never been that, because even in Last Jedi, when fucking
he's shirtless, and there's a moment where she gets a little verklempt.
I guess Palpatine connected them so they could force time on demand.
You're a diadem.
You know, there was never a romantic relationship. No. Rey always believed that she could turn Kylo back to the light side of the Force.
That's right.
And Kylo was always looking for an equal with which to rule the galaxy in. Like, at no point was he ever just like, come enjoy the dark side, dick.
Yeah.
It is like when you join the dark side, you get like 2 inches.
Listen.
You'll love it.
Force
you know,
growth.
Oh my God. So like I said, it's just like, again, everything about it was so fucking bad. But like, even in like the climax, we get Deus Ex fucking Kylo.
Yep.
For no reason.
MacGuffin number 4.
Yeah, it never explains how he didn't just get thrown into his death.
I just climbed up.
You know, it's just.
Well, here's the thing. The way that I like to describe that kiss is that the way that kiss went and how badly it ruined that sequence and that scene is basically, imagine how bad Pacific Rim would have ended if fucking Mako and Riley are like just necking each other on that fucking ship. You'd be like, okay, this isn't, no. But at the end of that movie, it plays really well, and it plays it to a level of like simple emotion that you're able to be like, these people have a connection, but they're not romantic at this point. So they're just going to hug, and they're just going to have a moment of connection that is not based on romance specifically. Not that there's not chemistry, but there's not romance right now because there's more to deal with. And so in that moment for them to kiss, it's just like
payoff for it, because all they've ever done is force time, yell at each other, fucking bicker, and then all of a sudden
kill each other or torture each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's just like, well, she healed me once, so I'm a kisser.
I'm going to get down on that shit. No, like it just, the movie, there are enjoyable moments. I think some of the cinematography was really nice. I thought that there were very good moments for Star Wars where, you know, we went to cool new planets and we saw some interesting characters. Right. Babu Freak was fun. But like all things considered, the end results of this movie was that it is a mildly enjoyable mess. But as soon as you have to think about anything, the movie is fucking horrible.
Oh, yeah. And like, listen, like Solo, this is a movie that nobody asked for, with details that nobody cared about. But with that being said, there are these moments where you can just sort of shut your brain off and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Like, I like Solo more because both Woody Harrelson and Donald Glover are seen stealing whores,
without a doubt,
and
it's funny. Like, it's a funny movie.
Skywalker doesn't have actors like that where you just want to watch them. And so it's just like, you know, listen, I thought Solo was the worst of the new age of Star Wars. Because again, like in my mind, you have the originals, which are excellent. You have the prequels, which are trash. And all of the modern stuff is going to be better than the prequels. And Solo was always just like, yeah, it's here. It's fun enough. Don't think about it.
There's some cool shit in there. You know, Darth Maul's back.
Shit. Well, like, and the worst part is, like, Darth Maul is back. We will never get payoff for that ever again in our lives.
You'll get it in Rebels. Keep watching Rebels.
All right, sure, I will keep watching it in
Rebels. All right,
but
so
like,
we're at 3.5 hours. If we go to 4 hours, I will literally have to cut this into 2 like separate things, because we're gonna stop at 3.5 hours and just be like, it was a long show. I'm giving you the last word on this one, Nathan. It was a long show, and there's our review. Sit and enjoy it. I'm probably going to put a disclaimer when I post this thing to just be like, right up until about an hour and a half in, we're talking about other things, and then the last hour and a half of this is just the fucking Rise of Skywalker. So if you don't want to hear anything about the Rise of Skywalker, check the fuck out. Thanks for coming. But anyways, that has been Jaded Gamercast for this week. My name is Lang.
I'm Nathan.
Have a good one.
Cheers.